Hello and welcome to What's Funny About on Radio 4, hosted by me, Peter Fincham.
And me, John Plowman. This is a show all about television comedy. We talk to the writers, producers and performers behind some of Britain's biggest TV comedy hits, and we hear the inside story of how they brought their shows to the screen.
We're thrilled to be joined in the shed this week by Sharon Horgan and Rob Delaney to talk about their sitcom masterpiece, Catastrophe. The show's title is taken from a famous line in Zorba the Greek. I'm a man, so I'm married. Wife, children, house, everything. The full catastrophe.
You can do the accent. No. Garlanded with awards and broadcast in 132 countries around the world, it's the story of an Irish primary school teacher in London who meets an American ad exec in a bar. She gets pregnant. He moves over here to be with her. It's told in a way that no other comedy had ever dared, which is why it gives us particular pleasure to be able to ask Rob, Sharon, what's funny about Catastrophe?
Rob Delaney is...
No, Sharon Horgan is. I mean, isn't it that it's the simplest possible premise, maybe? We didn't try to reinvent the wheel in terms of, structure and subject matter, but we did try to be merciless with the jokes and try to make it feel true and try to make the painful things hurt, Maybe that would be it.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to say what's funny about anything, really. It's a terrible question. but like Rob and Sharon were definitely characters who were funny and sparked off each other, but all the characters that surrounded us.
Yeah.
You would also want to spend time with, right?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. I mean, even now, if I think about a Daniel LaPayne or a Mark Bonner, I mean, my heart, or Ashley Jensen and the characters they played, it's like,
Did anybody ever ask you to do something different with it?
Not really. I mean, it started out a little different just because we were going to spend a lot longer getting to the actual premise of them, having kids. The courtship in it was a lot longer. In the end, it ended up being the first 5 minutes of the pilot, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Great editorial note, whoever gave us that. But no, I don't think so. I think we were very much just sort of let do our own thing.
Yeah. And I mean, it didn't cost any money, nowadays, the type of TV that's getting made, so they gave us a lot of freedom and we had a pretty clear vision of what we wanted to do. So they kind of hung back.
To pick up on the they there, Rob, so they is Channel 4. Channel 4 commissioned it. But am I right in thinking it had a kind of history before that with the BBC and you developed it, you wrote a script and the BBC turned it down?
I guess they just felt it didn't fit. And like the more I've worked since, the more I'm like, all right, maybe it really didn't for them at that time, because God knows Phil Clark commissioned it at Channel 4. He brought it to him and he was like, pretty good. But guess what? I'd like to see you guys get to know each other. And we were like, you would? I thought we needed to start in the middle. And he was like, no, I think people are going to want to see. And we were like, if you say so. So we did a draft of that. And we were like, oh, yeah, I guess that is fun.
And early on, it got picked up by Amazon.
Before
did they give you notes?
Aired. They would a little bit, but we kind of editorially just only listened to Channel 4 because Amazon makes some good shows, but at the time we were like one of their first shows and they were like, well, they can sell stuff, you can buy fertilizer or like a hammer, but why don't we just listen to Channel 4?
How did you meet?
I saw the show Pulling, which is an unbelievable masterpiece, and it really knocked my socks off. At the time, it was my favorite sitcom I'd ever seen. I thought it did everything that a sitcom could and should do, and more things that I'd never even conceived of. And I was like, oh my God. And then I saw that you followed me on Twitter, and I was like, why? There must be a glitch. There's a following demon in there that made her follow me. So I said, you followed me by mistake, please stop. And she said, no, I've seen your stand-up and stuff. And so we met in real life once. We said, hey, let's get a cup of coffee. That was before Twitter was mostly for white nationalism.
Media. This is a very modern thing.
Yeah.
This started on social media.
So you didn't write the show on Zoom?
We did it on
we did.
Skype.
We would Skype, and like at the time I lived in LA and you lived here in London, so we would do like factory assembly line.
Yeah.
I'd write while you were asleep and you'd write while I was asleep, and then we got together and read that and we're like, mediocre. And so then we rewrote everything together.
Yeah.
There's an unusual thing perhaps about Rob and Sharon in the world of Catastrophe. they are funny and they make each other laugh. Now, and that might not seem very unusual, but if you think about, I don't know, a sitcom like Fawlty Towers as an obvious example,
Right.
Basil and Sybil Fawlty aren't funny to each other at all. They don't know they're in a comedy.
Yeah.
But with Rob and Sharon, they are funny to each other, and that's one of the reasons they fall in love. You give each other funny lines as part of your relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if two people are going to fall in love, comedy is going to be an ingredient in that, and so we couldn't leave it out, you know. And I guess maybe some comedies might historically, you know, think like, well, they just have to be falling in love, and that can't be showing off their sense of humor to each other. But
yeah, but the thing that we always didn't want it to be was characters saying funny lines, and then in response, you know, the other character kind of makes a disgruntled face, or that they're not aware that funny lines are being said. Because in sitcom, that, I mean, it's like you're saying with Sybil and Basil, you know, not that wasn't brilliant, but we wanted the sort of opposite, that they did really make each other laugh, and it was part of why they loved each other. And also I remember thinking really early doors that it gave us a get out of jail free card on corpsing constantly, because he always really made me laugh, but the characters were allowed to find each other funny. So,
and it's hugely truthful. You don't go for big jokes.
I mean, I've never taught writing. I suspect I never will. But the one thing that we did that to me I could never not do now is say it out loud, write it down, then read it out loud, because we were always like, shame on us if it ever feels written. Because there are shows where you're like, that's really clever what that person wrote and then had an actor say. And to me, that's like, it's so hard to watch.
We should talk about sex, because you talk about sex a lot in the show. You use exactly the language that a couple uses.
Well, I don't even have to put it in. I can just pop it between your thighs, and then if you get turned on, then we can...
I get turned on?
Well, you can't predict the future.
Why do you even want to have sex with me? I wouldn't want to have sex with me. I'm just a cow in a dressing gown.
You're so much hotter than a cow.
Oh, God. Okay, you can do it between my thighs, but just come on your own stomach.
You drive a hard bargain, but I agree to your terms.
That's my favourite.
Did you
my
write
favourite scene in the whole
Did
thing.
you write each other's lines, or
All
did
the time.
you tend to write? You didn't write Sharon.
Sharon wrote loads of Rob, and I wrote a lot of Sharon.
Okay.
Just like we loved to write for Mark Bonner, we loved to write for each other. Too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I was thinking of the other night? It's because I was driving in traffic, and a scene from Catastrophe came into my head. It was like such a lovely love scene. And I've been drinking, and you come and you pick me up, and we're just talking about a relationship, and it's a really beautiful moment. And I say to him, do you want to put your hand up my skirt? And you go, yeah, okay. And he puts his hand up, and I go, what are you doing? Get in there. And it's so romantic and lovely. And then it leads up to this terrible moment where Rob crashes, and then it's revealed, he realizes that he's going to get breathalyzed, and she's going to find out that he's back on the booze. And it made me think about comedy and what it can do, and how powerful it is that you can have a moment like that wouldn't exist in a drama, followed by such a dramatic, emotional moment.
There's a scene where you talk about infidelity, and on the face of it, everything Rob says is appalling. And at the end of it, Sharon says to him, "That's so sweet."
Why does it have to be a prostitute?
Because if you think I'm going to put time, and money, and effort into maybe getting into some woman's pants, you're crazy. If I ever do cheat on you, it's going to be a cash transaction with a guaranteed ejaculation, after which she immediately leaves, so I can ponder suicide because of how guilty I feel.
Oh, that's so sweet.
That is the strangest definition of sweet.
Oh, it is sweet.
So romantic.
And it does feel entirely real. Was any of it improvised?
Not on set.
No, but when we were writing, there was a lot of just us kind of talking, and then like I do often say this, like stuff would just come out of Rob like wholesale finished, and I'd just be like just trying to get it down.
Once you start shooting, you're not in an improvisational world at that point. It's nailed down by the time you film.
It is. I mean, because we're laughing here and having fun. one area where I'm not a nice person and have only gotten worse is if we've worked hard on writing it, I'm I guess a bad person and a bad collaborator, because like with actors and stuff, it's like, we wrote it that way, and we hired you because of who you are as you are. We love you and do what we wrote.
I know.
So that's how we were.
We were. I mean, I've tried to expand a little, but I think I always end up at a place where I'm going, and now let's just get it as it is, just for fun.
Yeah.
You know.
So
Except for
nobody
Carrie
ever-
Fisher, we must say.
Oh, yeah, that
Carrie
is
Fisher,
true.
we let her do whatever she wanted, and thank God we did.
Carrie Fisher joined the series in a slightly unusual way. Am I right in thinking you saw her at an awards ceremony and she was very funny, because she's an unlikely figure in Catastrophe, but then makes a huge impression.
She plays your mother. we
She
should
sure
say.
does, yeah.
Plays your mother.
Yeah, we saw her give an award to Graham Norton at the Attitude Awards, and you were like, what if we got her to play your mom? And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. And then we straight up, in the old-fashioned way, sent it, like we didn't know her. We had no connection. We like gave it formally to her agent, and pretty quickly she was like, yeah, sure, when?
I mean, it was a shocker.
When Sharon, the character, first meets your mother, she's terrifying, and she's was she similarly terrifying, or was it all fine?
Not because of her. We were terrified to meet her, but she
Yeah,
was
yeah.
very warm and kind, and
Oh,
only
yeah.
became more so over the series. She was just
But
a
we
dream.
were completely in awe.
Yeah. I mean,
It's probably why we just
like
let her do
dry
whatever
mouth.
she
Yeah.
wanted.
Hello.
Hello, is this Mia?
Yes, it is.
Mia, this is Sharon.
From London?
Rob's Sharon.
Oh. Yes, of course. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. Nice to speak to you. I know we'll meet sooner or later. I just wanted to introduce myself and also to invite you to our wedding.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, we're going to get married properly. So if it's something that you wanted to attend, then we'd be very happy to work around your dates. And...
You know, I don't fly well, and I can't leave my dog, so...
Oh, would it make any difference if I told you we're not just getting married because I'm pregnant? You know, we really like each other, and also he needs a visa.
Whatever the reason, it's just such wonderful news. I'm so glad that Rob has found someone after everything with Betsy.
Who's Betsy?
Betsy? His ex? You know, after Betsy miscarried, it was very hard for both of them. And me.
What?
He must have told you.
No. And I have to say, I think that's very insensitive of you. I am currently pregnant, after all.
Well, I didn't mean...
Oh, no, I think you did. Jesus, stick the knife in phone call number 1, why don't you?
Sorry?
You know what? I rescind my invitation. That means I take it back. You're not invited. Hello? I hope your dogs get leukemia.
That's an wonderful scene. I can't.
Damn, I forgot about
believe
her dropping the miscarriage in there. That is
Betsy bomb.
vicious.
But that sounds like that was what you wrote. I can't
that-
believe she
yeah,
can't
yeah.
have improvised that. That was so
No,
precisely
what
written.
she did do was, with that phone call, she kind of went off on me.
Yeah.
And we just kind of let her because we kind of, we thought, well, we have the power in the edit. But yeah, that was all on the page.
Listening to you talking about the show sounds like you had the most enormous fun making it. Now, I say that because we've sat in this very shed with people who've created great comedy shows, but as we dig a little bit deeper, we find out that it was hell from beginning to end, but a great comedy show came out of it. Not the case with Catastrophe.
And you're still laughing at your own
You're still
show.
laughing as you watch the clips.
Is
and
that
it's,
bad?
No, it's good.
I
No, it's
feel
good.
like just only good feelings when
yeah, I
when
really
I
do.
see it. Yeah.
I mean, here's an interesting thing that I haven't told you yet, Sharon, is that when the show just came out again on Netflix, I went right to the second series because in my memory, my second series was my least favorite because we made it so fast on the heels of one that I was like, okay, the feelings that I had during making that were not as uniformly pleasant as I felt making 1, 3, and 4. So I was like, that'll probably mean that I'm not going to like it as much, right? And then I watched it. Not the case. I was screaming, laughing with just body blow jokes, like with you and your momby friend, like losing my mind. So that was just a weird feelings myth I told myself in history. So now I'm a real monster who actually enjoys all 4 series rather than just 3. I gotta say, we are so lucky that the show was on Channel 4 terrestrial commercial break, 23-minute and 50-second episodes, because part of the tightness of the show is due to that. You know, there's some shows that will bloat sometimes because they're like, oh, well, we can. And the luck that I retroactively realized we had then to make the show just be like boom, 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 boom.
That's such an interesting point about Channel 4, because now in the streaming age that we're in, those disciplines are kind of disappearing, and you can let an episode run to its natural narrative length, might be 38, 40 minutes or whatever. But the old-fashioned, as I suppose we should call it, commercial half hour is a brute. You know, you got 22 minutes.
I think for the most part, it is a bad idea to let someone just like have, an unspecified amount of time. I mean, I know that I would have kept stuff in there that would not have helped the show, and might have eventually led to a nice moment or a good joke, but you didn't need it.
In the beginning, because this was my first show, I would be like, we're going to cut out what? And you'd be like, I think we do have to cut it out. But then by the time we were like, halfway through season 2, I was like, yeah, cut that. Because I knew if you're cutting something that you love, then the episode's probably good. So then I would start to get like a drug high from cutting stuff that I really loved. I'd be like, cut it. Yeah, get that out of there. Because then that you've got a good episode.
It sometimes feels like you gave yourselves different subjects for different episodes. Is that imagined?
I don't know if we did, but I agree that it feels that way.
I think we always wanted it to be the kind of show that if you just dipped into one episode, that would be really fulfilling. So they all had to have story of the week. But because it was the beginning of sort of streaming and stuff, you need the narrative for the series as well. I think we were, rather than topic led, we were often like character led. It was usually the first thing we do before we'd even start outlining a series. We would talk about our characters and what we'd like to see them doing, right?
Yeah.
And even like with the idea of like bringing in family, talking about family more. We think, well, we want to meet Rob's sister, and then we would think about the topic of her being Amish or whatever. So usually I think it was sort of character-led and where we wanted to go.
But something like, because Rob, alcoholism becomes a thing, and your character becomes an alcoholic, then he gets dry and so on and so forth. Was that, if you like, on page 1 of the plan for the whole series, or is that kind of thing that evolved?
I don't think we knew that Rob would relapse, but I remember early on saying, like, I don't think he needs to be an alcoholic. And you were like, what if he doesn't have to do anything, but that could just be in our back pocket. And thank God you did, because that became really important.
And it gave us a lot of story, but it also, I think it's great to have content like that in a sitcom again.
Yeah.
And he sells drugs in the sense of working for a pharmaceutical company, and then you're a primary. There's all sorts of things going on there that are, there could be nothing more straightforward in its contribution to society than being a primary school teacher, and nothing more troubling than the idea of somebody who's selling
can I
dodgy
say?
drugs.
Well, he had come from advertising, so he was already.
He's already in a bad place anyway.
I don't know if I told you this, Sharon, but a friend of my dad's worked in pharmaceuticals, and he said to me, he was like, "How did you know all that about because it's that's exactly what it's like. Like, what research did you do?" And I was like, oh, we just tried to think up the most monstrous things we could think of, the most nakedly avaristic, horrific behavior.
True.
And he was like, oh, okay.
There was no research.
No research
whatsoever. You were very good at thinking of the names of drugs and the terrible things that they might cure or do, and then that was it. But no research.
But it does sometimes feel soapy. I mean, soapy in a good way, in the sense that we're following characters. We want to know what's going to happen next.
That evolved because we fell in love with the characters so much. I mean, initially, you only ever saw the characters when they were with Rob and Sharon, and then we were like, we want to follow these guys home.
That reminds me, I credited Channel 4, which they deserve, but also the fact that it was on Amazon where people could stream it. We had to make the show 2 different ways. Every episode had to be something that you could watch standalone, but it also had to be filmic, kind of, because streamers just snort up a whole series.
Yeah.
So I hope that I remember that, because you should. Every episode has to be good, and the whole thing has to tell a story. So we had nothing to do with that, but we did realize, this show's going to be consumed 2 different ways, so it has to kind of be 2 different types of good.
Both Rob and Sharon, they're capable of switching emotional gears very quickly, and they, in a sense, both have quite a short fuse. And Rob loses his temper with Sharon and with everybody else kind of quite quickly. Thinking of a scene with Fran and Chris, we get onto the subject of homeopathic medicine, and he just completely loses it.
You okay?
Yeah, just a little dizzy.
Oh dear. You know, I get a little bit anemic myself sometimes, and whenever I feel weak, I just take a tincture of polonius or some arsenicum, if that's all I've got, and I perk right up.
What do you do? What?
It's a homeopathic remedy.
Oh, no thanks.
Why not?
It's not real.
It is.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, well, I think it is.
Oh yeah, I was on a tube today and I saw a guy with no legs, so I prescribed him 3 drops of doodly doodaloo, and his legs grew back.
Rob Fran's a homeopath.
You could have told me that in my pre-dinner briefing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't actually realise that there are alternatives out there that really do work. My guru, Alan, he cured himself of prostate cancer last year with walnuts.
Oh, give me a break.
But pardon?
What did he do? Jam him up his asshole?
I'm sorry, you're coming into my house.
I don't need to rip into your beliefs in your own home, but we just received some news about Sharon that is not good. And if I thought for a second that I could just rub a blueberry on her vagina and fix her, I would. But I can't because it's bullshit.
I think you should leave.
I have cancer.
No, you don't. She's lying.
It's all out there, isn't it? On the table.
Yeah.
I love the way that ramped up.
I know, like Rob's just
So
lashing out at
good.
everyone. And then, I think it's great that you're Irish and I'm American and the show is set here, because it does give us there's a little, I don't know, membrane between us and the rest of the world or something in the show. So that I think that's a
Do you think that's because it's not something that the characters make a lot of in the show, but it's played in 132 countries. Do you think its kind of global appeal is connected with that, exactly what you've just referred to? It's set in London with an Irish woman and an American.
I mean, I guess it's more explicit that they are slightly different, and anybody in their own life, whether they're from the place that they are or not, that they're living, you do feel separate as a person and isolated, and how different am I from everybody else? So I think that there's the mildest alien aspect to each of them in their scenarios may help a little bit.
But also, didn't we slightly, I do feel like we were aware of our Amazon market, we were really like, let's make London just look great and not how it's been seen before, and let's just sort of.
I dare say we were, through no credit to each of us, but we were sort of at the beginning of a thing where people are making a show for an international audience. You know what I mean? I don't think that had quite happened as much yet. So we were thinking this has to be funny in America. It has to be funny in the UK and Ireland.
Yeah.
But did you go to America or Ireland?
No.
We pretended we did.
We pretended to go to Ireland.
I never thought that looked like a beach in Boston.
No.
Damn it. Well, we pretended we pretended we were in Ireland for my dad's funeral.
Yeah.
And we pretended we were in Boston for your mom's funeral.
You made 4 series of Catastrophe, and there are great sitcoms like The Office or Fawlty Towers that never do more than 2. You do, having said that, leave it at the end in a very ambiguous place. You might be moving to Boston, Sharon's pregnant. You could watch that and think, well, I can see where this is going. The American
Set up for series.
Yeah.
Or they
drown.
dead. Yeah.
Or they drown because they've ignored the riptides. And the kids are still in the car. Maybe we could just hear some of that scene as they sit on the beach.
So let's do it. Let's move here. We could have a good life here.
Look, I'm a husk of a man. And if you want to be with this, then I don't care where we do it. It could be London or Boston or Cairo. Just tell me where to be and when, and I'll do it.
I'm pregnant.
I know. I saw the test in the trash can. You left it like on top of the pile of trash. And I figured it wasn't Sydney's or my mom's.
Oh, God. What do you think?
I threw up when I saw it,
Oh, yeah, me too.
but then I thought, why not? I mean, it could be fun.
By the way, there is a spin-off series set in Cairo lurking in that.
Yeah.
That would be the
They
best
could
one.
move to Egypt. It's possible.
Oh my God.
But you could come back to this when they're teenagers. You could come back to this when they're students. There's no reason why Rob and Sharon won't be married to each other for many, many years to come. Ever tempted?
I mean, what if we effed it up? That would.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, you
who-
could have said that after season 1.
Yeah, I mean, who has done it well so far? All I can think of is Twin Peaks when they've come back with a TV show, and I was like, thank God they did that. So it would be dangerous. Oh my God. I said in a podcast a few months ago something along the lines of like, well, if I do it, then that means I've probably done it for money and you should like shame me. So in a way, I'd almost rather get hit by a bus. And then all these news things picked up that were like, Rob Delaney would rather die than make more Catastrophe. And I was like,
I read that.
Did you read that, Sharon? Oh, flattering.
I think you said starve to death.
yeah. And I was like, I did it. Please play the whole thing. I don't want to starve to death. I want to get hit by a bus. And it was in context.
Well, look, we're not trying to trap you into saying that Catastrophe is coming back or that it will never come back.
I think, I used to think about it a lot, and I remember when Pulling had a 10-year anniversary or something like that. It was the only time it was ever mooted, and so Dennis and I had a conversation about it, and we just thought, but why? Why would we? I don't know that you'd ever capture that sort of moment, and if you did, it would be like trying to capture that moment, and maybe you'd feel that or see it in some way. And
probably the better thing for us to do would be something different, because it would still be us, because so much of our characters are in that. So not try to recapture lightning in a bottle, but probably a better use of our quote talents would be to.
I do think it's unusual how well we work together in the writing, and how much we complemented each other, and how. I mean, now I realise it was easy for us, ridiculously so. And so it would be lovely to try and do that again. Because it should be, writing when you find it easy is a glorious thing.
Well, look, it's been an enormous pleasure talking to Sharon Horgan and Rob Delaney and answering the question, what's funny about Catastrophe? It's one of the funniest sitcoms of the 21st century.
It's absolutely joyous and true to life.
It's joyous, true to life, warm,
my life.
real, shocking, and all the things you want a show to be.
Oh,
so many
thank
thanks
you.
for joining us here in the What's Funny About Show.
Thanks so much.
Both.
Thank you, I loved it.
What's Funny About was an expectation production for BBC Radio 4. The producer was Owen Braben.
Hello and welcome to What's Funny About on Radio 4, hosted by me, Peter Fincham.
And me, John Plowman. This is a show all about television comedy. We talk to the writers, producers and performers behind some of Britain's biggest TV comedy hits, and we hear the inside story of how they brought the shows to the screen.
This week we're delighted to be joined by Paul Whitehouse and Charlie Higson, who created, wrote and starred in one of the most influential sketch shows of its era, and of any era in fact, The Farce Show.
The characters of The Farce Show were largely unconcerned with current affairs or politics. There were, for them, far more pressing questions. Where's my washboard? Aren't holidays brilliant? Does my bum look big in this?
The show was true to its name. It would dart at lightning speed between the quickest of quickies with catchphrases that seemed almost instantly to embed themselves in the consciousness of the nation. But it was also unafraid to forego a punchline and allow its characters to linger in moments of genuine tenderness.
And that's why it's such a joy to have the opportunity to ask Charlie and Paul what's funny about The Farce Show.
Well, it's a very good question. Charlie, over to you.
They always say don't analyse comedy too much, so I'm going home now. No, the thing about it, even though the Fast Show, the title was just a working title, and it's
awful.
It's a terrible title.
It's really bad.
It's like the Rolling Stones. It's a terrible name for a band. But once you come up with it,
it's a great name for the band. The Beatles is a bad name.
Yeah, the Beatles is a bad name. But once you get a name and you get, it kind of sticks. It was our working title. We couldn't come up with anything funnier. But the thing is, it was quite fast.
So how did it come about? Did somebody come to you, or did you go to the BBC?
We came to them. Yeah.
With the idea.
We'd been writing for Harry and performing, and Paul more than me performing, and through that process of doing sketch shows for him, we started to amass a certain amount of material that, for one reason or another, he didn't want, or it didn't work for him. Like, it was a character, but it wasn't a character that he would do, or
suit you.
Suit you. He just said, "What's funny
really,
about?"
Yeah, he didn't really.
What's funny about two blokes in a shop who insult people?
Yeah.
You think, well, is there anything funnier?
It's a staple of British comedy, isn't it, really? Anyway, Harry, for some reason, he didn't particularly like some of the ideas we had, so we sort of kept them. Yeah, and think, well, we'll work on them one day. And
do you think he saw that coming, or did he think, if I say to Paul and Charlie, your idea of people in selling suits in a suit shop, if I say it's not a very good idea, it will never be heard of again?
You better ask Harry that.
Oh, if we get him on this show, we will.
Well, I'll come on with him.
Did anybody say, we'd love to have a show with you guys?
Well, we took it to.
There was a precursor to this, Charlie, because do you remember there was a press launch for a series of Harry's show, and Jeff Perkins, late great Jeff, who we all know very well, had assembled a sort of edited
producer.
highlights, and he'd packaged up sort of 20-minute show reel of highlights of. It
was mostly the new characters, and it was just a little snippet of each one. And we thought, well, you've got to show the whole sketch, or people won't get it. But he just put in the funny bits, and we thought that's a great way to make a show. Just do the funny bits.
At the actual thing, going, "This is a bit Charlie." Yes, we were like,
as if it was a highlight show.
Yeah. Could you do this as a?
So it stems from that.
But I think there was a general movement in that direction of things being a bit more condensed. And particularly, it was the rise of, well, obviously videos have been around for a bit, but DVDs, the rise of people watching things over and over again.
Yes.
And we
this is a pre-internet,
Well, that's what I was saying earlier when you said
it?
What was funny about it, what was the success of it, and it was the fact that it was fast, and it still holds up. It looks like it was almost designed to be put on YouTube.
It fits the format
and
very well.
We're
very prescient, weren't we, Charlie?
We were.
Yes.
And what you see is that actually you don't need most stuff in sketches.
Yeah.
That the punchline is quite often the character.
I think you're right, actually, Don. And what we found was, even if it wasn't particularly funny, you're off. There's another one coming along just around the corner. So if you're bored of the one that's on, don't worry, there's another one coming. And
you were never afraid, actually, of going from fast gag to something more serious, something sadder.
No, I think for me, the sort of defining feature of the Fast Show actually is that we were able to do exactly that, and perhaps that hadn't really been done in sketch show before, that you could actually go to quite sad and poignant moments, and we always loved that element of it, didn't we? We actually found it was funny to throw in something really almost jarring in a way, you know, because it was so
well,
poignant.
It becomes,
sad.
You know, it points up the comedy around it. You know, it's very difficult to sustain something that is just gag, joke. There's always going to be a point where the audience gets a bit weary.
But isn't there a pressure on you when constructing a show to do that? To be funny, funny
in a comedy. There's a slight pressure. Well,
I don't know. There's been a few that haven't bothered at all.
I mean, the thing about...
I've been in some of them.
You may say that.
The thing about a sketch show is they take a huge amount of energy to write. You burn up a lot of material because it's all very short. But the great thing about doing returning characters is you've done some of the legwork, and you can actually bring in an element of story, which you don't normally get in a sketch show. And so you can develop the character and people can return to it and see what they're doing now. I mean, some of them, like Jesse coming out of the shed, that's it. That's all he does. But with Ted and Ralph, we were able to bring in story because people got to know the characters. So, story is a good source of humour. So to be able to bring that into a sketch show was very useful.
Presumably there was a kind of efficiency from a filming point of view. So if you take a character like Checkout Girl, Carolina Hearn's character, you could have kind of filmed all of those in one afternoon and spread them.
We did.
That's
You
what we did.
probably did.
We were meant to be filming them in the morning.
Yes. But she'd slightly overdone it the night before.
She was a little bit late arriving on set.
Hiya, love. Air freshener. House pong does it. Free range eggs. They're only ordinary eggs then, but with a bit of shit on. Sanitary towels. That dry weave top sheet. It's changed my life. Red wine. You celebrating? Wish I could celebrate something. £2.50 an hour I'm on. No to celebrate, is it? £9.27, please.
At that point, Caroline's career as individually had gone through the roof already, hadn't it? She'd been doing Mrs. Merton.
We would so have to pester them, say, can you send us...
please.
And eventually an envelope would turn up with a few sort of handwritten bits, little scrappy bits, like if you look on paper, the Checkout Girl stuff, it turned out, and you thought, oh, bloody hell, what's this? They haven't bothered to write anything. But when she does it, she gets so much into it. There's a whole
in that tiny
world.
little snippet you see all her life.
And that is, in the end, that's extraordinarily
It's brilliant
good writing.
because it's such a sort of antiseptic process buying food in a supermarket, isn't it? The great thing about it is you don't engage with anyone, and she crashes through that barrier and makes it a little corner shop in a village where she knows everything about your life.
And whenever I putting stuff through a checkout, I'm always thinking, what are they thinking about me from my purchases? But I was in a supermarket once, I can't remember what it was, and I put the shopping through, and the woman said, "Oh, that's a really great shop."
No. It's like they've got scorecards, isn't it?
Yeah. The Fast Show brings together a sort of extraordinary array of talent from completely different places. But is it fair to call it a loose collective of people?
Yeah, I'd go with that, wouldn't you, Charlie? With Charlie as the matriarch.
The matriarch. I've heard it said that you two were mum and dad to them. So I was going to ask the question, which one's mum and which one's mum? So obviously Charlie's mum and your dad.
No,
Paul.
it's probably Charlie's dad and I'm mum, really.
If we're going with traditional views of parenthood.
You always knew you wanted a group of people
We
around
did.
you.
We did.
Well, I think...
Partly because we'd done Harry's show, which was Harry and Paul, we wanted to do a traditional old-fashioned sketch show with a big team.
A bit Monty Python has always influenced us. So I think it was very natural for us to think, but we're a bit more politically correct than Monty Python, so we let women into our show.
But it was important to us to have a wide range of performing styles and writing styles. So the Fast Show had that sort of collage technique where you'd have a really beautifully shot thing on film somewhere up in the northeast, and then you'd have a suit you in the studio in a classic sketch show set up, and then you'd get Simon Day doing one of his very specific type of character that he does, and then, as you say, Caroline would come in and do her bits.
And how did you know when you'd got enough people?
Not till about halfway through the first series. We were still looking for a sort of John Cleese type, but it sort of slowly coalesced, and by the end of the first series we sort of knew what the core team was.
And did you try and construct it as a show, or did you try and construct it as a pile of material from which we will put together a show?
Mainly a pile of material. I mean, it's the old that old sort of we'll make it in the edit.
One of the things that in all sketch shows people agonise over is the running order.
Yes.
But would it be fair to say you could chuck it all up in the air, it could come down in another running order, and it would still be pretty much as funny? Or do you not agree with that?
No, I don't agree with that.
No, Charlie is right. We did agonise a lot over the running. It might not have looked it, but...
Okay. You were mentioning Monty Python, Paul, and in Monty Python you have quite elaborate ways of getting from one sketch to another one. John Cleese suddenly says, and nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition, and you're in that other sketch, so you've got these things. But
they did have complex linking.
Exactly.
I
don't think you do that at all.
No, we didn't want to do that because that's too obvious. Python.
Plus, you get tied down. You've got to leave things in because it's a link, and you think it's not very funny, but they're standing in the back of this sketch now.
Yeah. Did you ever worry that you didn't have to build characters more than what they were saying, if you see what I mean?
Well, we had some characters that we could do that with more especially
Ted
Ted
and
and Ralph, you know. Yeah.
We could tell quite early on which characters had the room and the opportunity to develop. I mean, Suit You, we couldn't ever think of any way of doing them where they weren't just in the shop.
It's a very conventional, old-fashioned sketch, really, isn't it? You know,
and you know, there's a sort of imagined slightly strange life behind them.
Thought of a colour, sir. We have some excellent blue serge.
Yes, blue or a grey.
Oh, suit you, sir. Oh, the ladies like a man in a suit, don't they, sir? Were you out with the lady last night, sir?
Yes, I was, as a matter of fact.
Did she want it, sir?
Beg your pardon?
The lady you were out with last night, sir, did she want it, sir? Oh, suit you, sir. Oh.
Where did they come from?
There was a guy, I worked at Hackney Council for a while, and there was a guy there, his name, well, I won't say his name, just in case he has any living relatives and they track me down.
Got a lawyer.
Yeah. But he used to say, hello, sir. He talked like that, you know, so that's sort of almost Dickensian, isn't it? Were you out with a lady last night, sir? Did she want it, sir? And it's a bit music hall as well, isn't it? You know,
But it's also those experiences that we had in our teenage years, going to a gentleman's outfitters
and feeling slightly threatened
to get the news where they're slightly too intimate and personal with you.
Plenty of room down there, young fella, my lad.
You got a girlfriend? Hey, bet you have. Good-looking young lad like you.
Another character, memorable catchphrase is Arabella Weir and "Does my bum look big in this?" Let's just listen to a clip of that.
Good morning, Miss Schumacher. Thank you very much for stopping. Do you realise why I pulled you over?
It's the jacket, isn't it? Doesn't work with this top. Change your skirt, maybe? I don't know. What do you think? Do you think I should have worn different earrings? Something a bit more dangly down, a bit more fun, maybe look a bit more crazy? I don't know. Now, listen, should I have worn my hair up, a bit more grown up? Might have made me look a bit severe, though. I know what you're thinking. Make my face look all puffy and bloated, wouldn't it? No, listen, come back. I want to know. I need to know the truth. Does my bum look big in this car?
How did that come about?
It was a one-off quickie thing we did in the first series. We put these little bits in the closing credits, didn't we?
It was Harry's.
It was totally Harry's idea,
of an insecure woman. Yeah, and she took it and ran with it, and it was probably, along with "Suit You," it was probably about the biggest catchphrase from the show. Really, yeah, it was.
So was the show a success immediately?
No, not really, was it, Charlie? The only saving grace I think about the first series was that John Peel nailed his colours to the mast, and he used to do a regular column in the Radio Times, and he sort of saw it, you know, as this sort of beacon of light in the world of comedy. And he really gave us some great reviews. And I think that helped us a lot.
Well, it went out in quite a sort of obscure late night Tuesday evening slot, like 10:30 at night on a Tuesday. And
we didn't have any sort of real big name. Me from Harry's show, but that's all, really. Caroline had made a mark in Manchester, but not much beyond. Mark had been in a few productions. Harry had done a bit on Alexi Sale, but there were no big names in it. So
because everyone's sort of fairly familiar with it now, it's sort of accepted for what it is. But at the time, a lot of people were quite confused. And it did do the classic cult thing of building up an audience, and an audience who didn't feel patronised, because you did have to watch 2 or 3 episodes then to get the hang of it.
How early in the journey of it did it become obvious that Ted and Ralph was something very special? Was that immediately apparent, or were they a slow burn?
We almost cut them out of the show.
We would look at each other bewildered in the edit, didn't we? You know, but we had a feeling that, you know, there was something quite special about them, but whether they were going to land or not is another matter.
My impression is you loved the relationship between them and the 2 individual characters, Ted and Ralph. That this is a joy.
Well, it was great to work with Paul, but you've always said you found it
like
terribly boring because you just had to stand
compared
there.
to doing Smashy and Nicey or Brilliant. You know, I just
had to look.
I wouldn't know about that, sort. You know, that's it. You
While I'm acting away next to
Charlie's acting his socks off.
Are you doing anything on Friday, Ted?
Well, there's plenty to do down in the lower fields, what with the drainage problem.
No, you misunderstand me, Ted. I did mean in the evening. It's just I have a couple of tickets for Tina Turner.
All right, sir.
Do you like Tina Turner, Ted?
I wouldn't know about that, sir.
No. Have you ever been to Wembley Arena, Ted?
No, sir.
No? Oh, it's marvellous. It's very big.
Oh, it's a big place, is it, sir?
It's very big indeed. Indeed it is. We should have to stay over, of course. But you'd like London, I think, Ted. We could go shopping together.
I'm not sure about that, sir.
No. Well, I should have to be pushing off to Winslow, Ted. I pick up a prescription. So, I'll leave you doing whatever it is you're doing here. And, I shall say goodbye. Yes, goodbye.
Bye, sir. Do I love you, my, oh my? River deep, mountain high.
People do say, "Oh, will you bring the Fast Show back?" And at least we wouldn't need to spend so much on prosthetics and aging makeup.
On that point, what is the natural life of a sketch show? And we've, on the show, we've featured some other sketch shows, and very rarely do they get beyond a fourth series because the individuals involved start to set their horizons on other things that they want to do and so on. What was your experience on the Fast Show? Did it feel that it came to a natural end, or did you was it your...
Do you mind if I start that? I'd rather start at the beginning.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think, right, I don't know how much power you guys wield anymore, but you were very powerful.
None whatever.
And I would say, I never understand where directives come from. We'll say at the BBC, because that's where we've spent a lot of our time, and it's generated most of the best comedy. And I never understand where certain decisions that are made about commissioning and comedy. But one thing I would always argue is, if you're going to commission a series, commission 2 series straight away, because we certainly found our feet on the first series, didn't we, Charlie?
Yeah,
and we thought we were really going by series 2. We really knew what we were doing, and again with series 3 we took it up a notch again. And then I certainly thought, because of the nature of the show, because it relies so much on repetition, I didn't want to do many more, although we did do sort of one kind of series after that.
Yeah, which was meant to be a sort of Christmas special, but expanded into slightly weird. Yeah, I mean, it's what I wish we had done is within the period that we made the first 3 series, we could have fitted in a fourth within that period when we still had the energy and it was still fresh. But exactly what you said, Peter. Everybody was pulling away. Caroline already had gone off pretty much. Mark,
John was doing Cold Feet, wasn't it?
And Mark had he started Harry Potter then? But
Mark was Mark
because
was
we'd got a team
in demand. Harry was as well.
We'd got a team of very strong performers.
And you didn't think of doing sort of Fast Show Mark II, where you'd get in a new cast of younger performers? And
when we started, we sort of had the idea that might be the way we went, but it sort of coalesces into a thing, and we found ourselves slightly stuck with what we had. We tried to introduce new characters. Most of them didn't really have the impact of the early ones. I got obsessed reading Michael Palin's diaries. And he started writing it round about the time they were starting to make Monty Python, and there's very little about Monty Python in it. And he says afterwards, looking back, there's nothing about all these iconic sketches we did. I was too busy doing that, and we just thought, well, we're just making another sketch show. Nobody at the time, none of them knew that this was going to be this great iconic show. And to a certain extent, it was that with a Fast Show, we all sort of thought, well, this is great, but we'll go on and we'll do something even better and funnier, which we never managed.
were there any characters you dropped because they didn't work?
A few, yes. We were doing, was it the 3rd series when we did the Midlife Crisis Man?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Were you too young to play?
Well, one of the men's sort of lifestyle magazines got in touch with us before the series and said, we'd really like to do a magazine article following the development of one of your new characters for the series. Which character can you guarantee is going to get into the show? We said, we got this great character, this guy having a midlife crisis. And they followed it. We talked to them when we were writing it. They were there when we were looking for costumes for it. And they came to all the filming of the sketches, location-wise.
Who played it?
I played it. And what we and then the audience didn't like it because I realised what had happened is it worked great on paper, but I hadn't really worked out a character for him and how to play him.
We've talked about how sometimes sketches go from raucous, huge laughs to rather poignant things. Roly Birkin is maybe a perfect example of that.
She was a really beautiful woman. And she had a very long neck. That's marvelous thing. She had very intelligent, really piercing eyes. And of course, the war came along. Everything really between us. I remember that I was just a beautiful song. I can't remember it anymore. And as Billy said, I was in absolute floods of tears. It was really very cold, and she I held her in my arms. I'm afraid I was very drunk.
Based on a guy I met.
Not at Hackney Council, surely.
No.
This is when Paul had gone up in the world. He was salmon fishing in Iceland.
Not Yemen. And there was a guy there, and it was a sort of communal arrangement. You'd all eat together around the table. And there was about 15, 20 people. And this guy sort of fixed me one night. He said, I was fishing earlier down there, but I got that bloody actor chap who caught all the fish. And I said, that's me. He was telling me that I was a bloody actor chappie that caught all the bloody fish for her. I remember thinking it, Charlie. I was thinking of you. I thought, this is gold for the Fast Show, An old guy you can't really understand, but you pepper it with poisonous monkeys.
Like Ted and Ralph, there's an emotional kind of thing going on there below the surface, which gives it a depth, without loading too much.
I mean,
analysis on it.
Any sort of TV documentary thing where you see an old person talking about the past, it always brings tears to my eyes. Even if they're telling something, bland or amusing. And the great thing about Roly Birkin is the audience fills in all the gaps and brings a lot to it, because that. The sad one that everyone loves. I mean, I know you have a sort of story in your head, but it wasn't necessarily that she had died. It was more that she'd left him and gone off on the train. But everybody assumes she had died.
She had a very long neck. I sort of, in my mind, I held her in my arms, but I actually pictured her slipping away. Down a river and away.
Yeah.
In a river.
I thought she'd gone off on a train.
That's very poignant.
But you were very lucky, because at one point you turn your head and the light catches a little glistening bit of moisture in your eye. I don't think you were actually crying.
Are you saying that it was just a trick of the light?
That's a trick of the light.
Performance. BAFTA-winning performance. A trick of the light.
Sometimes making a very successful comedy show was a lovely and very happy time in people's lives. There have been other shows when, as the conversation goes on, you think, no, you ended up in creative conflict and you didn't speak to each other for a decade after it ended.
It was occasionally fraught, or somebody would be, not take too kindly to be being told that they shouldn't do it in a certain way. Or luckily, I had Charlie to do the hard yards, and so a lot of the tough decisions were taken by Charlie, and sometimes people got a bit antagonised.
Yeah, but it comes and goes, and because the show is still fondly remembered by the public, And because most of the time it was fun to make.
Yeah,
Because the
it
one
was.
thing we were able to do, again going back to things about budget and that, was that we did all our location shooting up in the northeast. Because there's a huge variety of locations. We'd go in a lovely hotel, we'd all be up there together. So those, I have really fond memories of those periods.
We're
and
all
I think,
still
and
in
I think
touch
everyone
with each other
did.
as well. We're all mates, and we all look back very fondly. And I think we're very proud of the Fast Show because it's still, you know, it's not contemporary, but it stands the test of time reasonably well. So I think, you know, we're very proud of it.
And I would say you have every reason to be proud of it because it's wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Well, listen, it's been a huge pleasure to talk to Charlie Higson and Paul Whitehouse about the Fast Show. We started asking what's funny about the Fast Show, and I hope we've demonstrated that it was funny then, it's funny now, it'll continue to be funny, and thank you for joining us for the conversation.
It's been a privilege to have you here.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
What's Funny About was an expectation production for BBC Radio 4. The producer was Owen Braben.
Hello, and welcome to What's Funny About on Radio 4, hosted by me, Peter Fincham.
And me, John Plowman. This is a show all about television comedy. We talk to the writers, producers and performers behind some of Britain's biggest TV comedy hits. And we hear the inside story of how they brought their shows to the screen.
This week, we're delighted to be joined by David Renwick and Richard Wilson, writer and star respectively, to discuss their award-winning sitcom that dominated the BBC schedules in the final decade of the 20th century, One Foot in the Grave.
Richard's performance as the relentlessly exasperated Victor Meldrew is one of the great, uniquely unconventional comic creations. The casual viewer may think of Victor as a pensioner, but of course he's not. He doesn't retire from his job as a security guard, he's made redundant. And therein lies the rub. It's not that he's simply an angry man, rather he's frustrated with the cards he's been dealt. A man put out to pasture before his time.
And while it's not afraid to explore moments of bleakness and the macabre, One Foot in the Grave isn't really a show about death at all. Quite the opposite. It's about life. That Victor has one foot out of the grave is what really matters. He feels himself the only sane voice in an increasingly mad world around him. So David, Richard, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll begin as ever by asking, what's funny about One Foot in the Grave?
Hopefully that's a rhetorical question. Not all of it's funny, of course, or is intended to be funny. There's a fair amount of darkness in the show as well.
Would it be fair to say you've sort of created a spokesman for the modern world?
Well, I guess that evolved as we went along. Really, the character was voiced all my own feelings and attitudes about everything.
So it's you?
Yeah, it is me. I've never made any secret about that. I don't necessarily behave as Victor does, anyway, more than Richard does. But it's amazing how many times people say, it's just like my father or my granddad. They never say it's just like me. No one wants to own up to that.
So you're the only person willing to say it's just like me.
Yes.
And as you very first started writing the character, giving him a name and so on, did you have Richard's voice in your head? I know you always wanted to cast Richard, and I think I'm right in saying Richard was wary, we can ask you this, Richard, but wary of playing a kind of older person because you were you're in the prime of your life at the time.
As he still is.
Just a boy.
Yeah. He was 53.
Richard, is it apocryphal or is it true that you turned it down?
I did turn it down early on. I thought I was too young.
I agree, very understandable.
Yeah.
At 53, you don't want to be accused of being an old person.
I'm glad you said what you said, because I was forever telling older people that it's one foot in the grave, but the other foot is well out of it. Yeah. And I was always very keen, because old people didn't like it.
No, that was the thing. And I remember that when it first appeared, it was described as wrinkly comedy. To think that now, I mean, the character, okay, Richard was only 53, but the character was only 60, which in 1990, it beggars belief now that would be described as I think all of us sitting around the table.
So the first time we meet Victor, he's in a uniform. He's in the uniform of a man who's worked in security. Perhaps we could just listen to a bit of that scene. He comes home and tells Margaret, "I've been made redundant."
What is it? What's the matter?
I've been replaced by a box.
What are you talking about?
It's standard procedure, apparently, for a man of my age. The next stage is to stick you inside one.
They haven't retired you.
Oh, haven't they? Oh, it was all a bad dream, then.
What did they say?
Bugger off, I think, was the general gist of it.
We think of Victor and Margaret having a quite fiery relationship because he's always losing his rag and shouting at people and so on. But there's an absolute underlying fondness between them that, would you agree, never goes away?
Yeah, absolutely. People used to say, "Why does she stick up with you?" I said, "Well, because she loves me." And I think that's...
And he loves her.
And he loves her.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you agree that each episode is a brilliant piece of engineering?
Yes.
I mean, of course you.
Of course I would.
But I mean, it seems like each episode starts with an incident that we know that is certainly funny, but we know is going to be important later.
My MO was always just to sit down and write as many funny, or think of as many funny ideas, moments, set pieces as I could, and then try and weave them together.
And when did you know you'd got an episode?
Probably when I got about 6 really solid ones that I thought that there was enough substance there, and then the pathos and the dramatic moments kind of came much more easily.
When you were kind of constructing your kit of parts, David, kind of early on, you obviously made some key decisions that remain with the whole series. So one of them was no children, that Victor and Margaret never had children. On the other hand, they do have neighbours, and the neighbours are really essential characters. Then there's the wonderful Mrs. Warboys, who is a sort of member of their family in a way, because she's often there. And what lay behind those decisions? Maybe most interesting, perhaps, no children.
I tended only to think ahead as far as the next funny idea.
Okay.
And that's really, is the honest answer, because I can remember Susie Belbin, our producer-director, when we were sitting there in the office doing that first series, said, "So do this couple, do they have any children, have any kids, grown-up kids?" I said, "I don't know." If it...
Did we have a child who died?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that only...
Stuart.
Yes. And I only came up with that moment because it seemed to fit, very comfortably into the bedroom episode where they were trying to get to sleep for half an hour. And it seemed like a nice grounding moment to all the sort of madness that had gone on before, to introduce that, rather tragic, sad moment.
And a sympathetic moment, which gets you on, obviously, on their side and on Victor's side, because there might be some comparison between Basil Fawlty and Victor Meldrew as angry central characters to sitcoms. But I don't think that goes very far. They're quite different in other ways. And ultimately, we root for Victor, whereas we enjoy seeing Basil Fawlty coming completely unstuck, because underneath it all, there's a good person who's just thwarted by all that goes around him.
I mean, I adore Fawlty Towers, and it was a huge influence to me. But my tendency is, as in other shows, is to write reactive characters rather than proactive characters, certainly the central characters. And that was true of Victor. He got up every morning potentially feeling quite cheerful, and it was all of the the rubbish that I inflicted upon him every day that created those situations.
Obviously, Fawlty Towers is what John Cleese did after Monty Python. But the spirit of Monty Python exists much more in One Foot in the Grave than it does in Fawlty Towers. You have a love of the surreal and the really weird. You have a love of props, I think. 243 garden gnomes in the house.
I think these things are that in the DNA, for people like me who grew up with Python and who adored Python and Cleese and all of those antecedents. It's just my sense of humour.
But did you receive each script and think, "Oh my God, I've got to do all this prop work as well as learn all these bloody lines"?
No, I loved seeing the scripts, I remember, because I knew that's where I would get laughing. And I remember we had a cow in the garden.
Yes.
which I was finding rather difficult to deal with. And I remember saying, I think we've got to do something about this cow. Or something like that.
Yeah, we shot most of it without the cow, of course, and
yes.
there were a few wide shots where you were behaving, reacting to a cow that wasn't there. But where I think you were, just so brilliant in one of the many areas you were brilliant, Richard, was in the minutiae of your behaviour with, not elaborate props, but taking your glasses out and putting them on to read something, and opening a newspaper and taking the time that all of the natural time, the breathing space, that all those little bits of tiny business, would take in real life.
Great example of a prop that plays a fantastic role in a brilliant sequence is the yucca plant. Victor has ordered a yucca plant. It's arrived when he's in the garden, correct me if I'm wrong here, and he said, put it in the loo. Victor's in on the joke a long, long time before we are as the audience. You hold it right back to the end.
Well, I'll tell you exactly what the problem is, Mr. Sturgeon. I was out the back working in the garden when he arrived, so I asked him if, for the time being, he'd put it in the downstairs toilet for me. And you know what he's done? He's only planted it in the pan. Yes, actually in the lavatory pan. With compost and everything. I mean, how anyone could be so utterly goofy just boggles the mind. A mistake anyone could have made. And you stark stick. I mean, what am I supposed to do? Cock my leg against the trunk like a Yorkshire Terrier?
That's a scene, Richard, in which you don't say the immortal words, I don't believe it, which has there's come to, I know it's come to haunt your life. I feel guilty for even bringing it up. But did you see this coming when, is it in the first episode? Or
No,
did you think David has created a monster here, a catchphrase that's going to be shouted at me for years to
What
come?
am I allowed to say? I don't think catchphrases are born like that.
Well, that's what in a way that I'm asking about.
Well, it was never intended to be a catchphrase.
I think David Croft created them, didn't he? I mean, there's so many in that I think are self-conscious.
But this felt much more organic.
I think it's the last episode of the first series. I think I'm right in saying
something like that.
Yeah, when he's trying to get rid of Mrs. Warboy's trilby. You remember that? And it comes back. He's also let the electrician walk off with a pair of shoes, and he thinks that this box that he's about to open contains those shoes, and of course it's Mrs. Warboy's trilby. And that's, I think, the first time we hear him say, "I don't believe it," which is just something you would say.
And would it be fair to say that in later episodes you almost purposely write unbelievable or variations on that, so that the famous line is
yes, sometimes they'd only give me half a line. I do and stop me.
I think my favourite, if it can go out, was For the Love of Buggery.
Was the show an immediate hit?
No.
It probably only got about 8 million.
Yes.
Which in those days would have been...
The first episode got, I think, 9 point something.
And that wasn't a hit?
The second episode was 7. And I was just suicidal. I remember, suicidal. I thought, I think it was the third series, wasn't it?
Third series. They repeated the second series on a Saturday or something.
They repeated 1 and 2, I think, didn't they, together, all 12 episodes.
And that just gave it
took off.
A help.
Yeah, and by the time the third came out, it was starting to pick up, and I think the third series opened to something like 13 million or something.
Did you feel then, I mean, both of you, we haven't just created a funny sitcom, we've struck a nerve. After all, it's about a retired couple or an older couple, but those sort of figures, younger people must have been watching it as well, or everybody was watching it.
I think you said earlier, Richard, about old people hated it. I mean, I don't, but certainly I think you particularly got a lot of good reaction from young people and students,
Yeah,
and people you wouldn't expect, who saw more in it than the fact that it was about old people, which it never was. Because I always said it could have been about someone in their 30s who had just lost their job. It was only really about someone of that age because I wanted Richard to play it and saw it, that going in that.
And because maybe because grumpiness levels do
Maybe.
naturally raise as we get a little bit old.
Yeah, maybe.
Had you spent a lot of your career being grumpy?
You got grumpy parts offered to you after that, of course.
Oh yes,
That
gosh,
became a bit of a
lots of
typecasting.
grumpy parts were offered.
But you weren't naturally grumpy before.
I don't think so. No.
Did you find the anger tough?
But the anger got a bit boring after a while, because David was always giving me a new thing to be angry about.
Did you say to David, could you please write an episode where I never lose my temper? We haven't talked all that much about the relationship between Victor and Margaret.
Yeah.
But you could be forgiven for assuming that all Margaret does is tolerate him and that if she could get away, she would. But in one of my favourite, possibly my absolute favourite episode called Warm Champagne, we start to see some real emotional truth about Margaret and Victor when she goes on a date with a man called Ben.
Margaret,
Hello, Ben.
you're looking radiant.
Oh, I don't feel it. Thank you.
I was beginning to think I'd dreamt it all. The holiday, and you. Oh, wait up. Sir, this isn't properly chilled. Would you bring us another, please? Certainly, sir. I always think there's nothing worse than warm champagne. Especially tonight.
I think it's a very strong clue that he's a wrong 'un. He's wearing a bow tie on the date. And he's trying to persuade her to leave Victor because he's ghastly.
It's never too late, Margaret. Even at our time of life. To change direction. What was that for?
Just kissing you goodbye, Ben.
What do you mean?
It's like Christmas presents, isn't it? They always look so exciting and full of promise, sitting there under the Christmas tree. And then once you've opened them, all the mystery's gone. Be much better to leave them as they are with their wrapping paper on. That way you'll never be disappointed. And I think we should leave our wrapping paper on. Because one of us is going to end up being cruelly rejected, and I couldn't bear that to happen.
But how can you say that? If you don't reject me, I would never reject you.
I meant one of the three of us. You talk about being sensitive. I'm afraid that's Victor's trouble. He's the most sensitive person I've ever met. And that's why I love him, and why I constantly want to ram his head through a television screen. I've had a lovely time tonight, Ben. And now I'm going.
Margaret.
Oh, do you know what's actually worse than warm champagne? No. I really don't think you do.
That's David, you've written a lot of dialogue there with not very many jokes in.
No,
Obviously
no.
quite deliberately.
Yes, until you get to ram his head through.
Yeah.
But who knows quite what was going through Margaret's mind when she, agreed to that. She acknowledges the frictions that they live with, but basically saying their bond, their marriage is stronger than all of that. And it's just the whole thing of just trying to get into reality, really, into real life, rather than, I suppose we've seen so many sitcoms over the years where you do ask, why are these people together? Not only marriages, but relationships of any kind, where you think basically all the comedy comes from them warring with each other and trading insults. Why the hell would they stay together?
Victor couldn't have imagined a world without Margaret, Richard, would you agree?
No, absolutely not. No.
And Margaret can't imagine a world without you.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Does it partly come from the fact that what you've got with Richard and Annette, two really good actors, not comedians?
Yes, it's totally that. Obviously I had worked with Richard and knew of your strengths, of course, goes without saying. Annette was a completely new element in the whole package. I mean, interestingly, I think Annette took a while to settle in to the playing of that role, didn't she? We watched that scene earlier on from episode 1 where I think you, Richard, just hit the ground running. There's nothing different about your playing of Victor in that first episode to the last episode, whereas Annette she's still slightly kind of is over-performing.
You gave some of the characteristics that could have been in Margaret and Annette's character to Mrs. Warboys, who is a sort of friend of them both, but more primarily a friend of Margaret. Victor is as rude to Mrs. Warboys as you ever would be to the person you're married to, and apparently fearlessly rude to her, because she does say some quite kind of annoying things at times.
Yes, I mean, she was the only one I conceived of as being a regular character, and then not every episode from the off. But I felt it was significant that all of the indignities that I imposed upon Mrs. Warboys throughout the series, the run of the series, if they'd happened to Margaret, wouldn't have been funny. It wouldn't have been funny for Ray Winston to have rolled Margaret in a sack down the hill and then been sort of jumped on by an Alsatian. It just wouldn't have been funny if it had been Margaret in that sack, whereas with Mrs. Warboys it always was. And of course, you know, we give due mention to Doreen Mantle for her playing of it, I mean, which was just made the whole thing work.
We've, on this series, talked about a lot of comedies from the 70s, 80s, 90s. You often find attitudes, language that really is problematical in the modern age.
Yes.
I don't think that's the case with One Foot in the Grave. You don't have an issue, or do you, where the BBC go through snipping out the odd line when they're putting it on the iPlayer because you can't say that in 2020. I don't
there aren't many. I don't think
they wanted us to stop swearing, didn't they? The BBC.
Well, when you were making it.
I don't know. It was always a post-watershed programme. It was never family viewing. It was always meant to be on the edge.
Yes, I can remember, in the 1990s, I was the executive producer of I'm Alan Partridge. Knowing you with Alan Partridge, the chat show, and in the first episode, Amanda Iannucci and the writers of that wanted Alan Partridge to lose his rag and tell one of his guests to F off. And I had to ring the commissioner at the BBC to say, can he tell the guest to F off? And the commissioner said, no, he can't. That commissioner was John Plowman, who's sitting here alongside me.
Well,
and I think he ended up saying, swivel on this, or something like that, which was actually a very good line. Yeah. But you were in so John, to your credit, you were in a continuous negotiation about language. But One Foot in the Grave seems pretty bold.
Well, I was always, from the outset, amazed that it was submitted to BBC One, because all of my previous work in collaboration with Andrew Marshall, ITV, had been late night, 10 o'clock, spitting image slot, that kind of thing. Yes. And in writing this and feeling I was continuing that sort of vein of that same kind of basic style, I had never doubted the fact that it would have to be a BBC Two show late at night or something. But it went to BBC One.
Did the dynamic of the relationship with the BBC, I would imagine, and this happens to other shows, you start with, will you commission us at all? Will you commission a pilot? Then at the end of the first series, are the figures good enough? Will you commission the second series? But sort of when you have something as successful as this, aren't they begging you for it and saying, please do another Christmas special, please do another series?
Yes, there was a lot of that. Alan Yentol just wanted more and more One Foot in the Graves. And then Peter Salmon, I think, took over from him and tried to persuade me to do a One Foot in the Millennium to kind of round it off.
What does that mean?
I know. But Victor looking forward to the new, next 1,000 years with, his own particular insights. For the previous 3 years, we just made a Christmas special, that was all. And I wasn't really up for that idea and went in instead and suggested we did a final series of 6. I don't think he could believe his luck.
So let's come to the story of why and how it ended. It certainly wasn't because you, Richard, thought I'm now too old to play this character, can't have been.
No, I was beginning to get a bit fed up with anger, thinking, "Oh, I can't be angry again."
So you're turning it on like a tap, as it were.
Yeah.
And presumably fed up with people saying
Yeah.
your catchphrase at you.
Yes. We didn't do all that many.
25 hours it added up to the calculation.
Is that right?
Have you ever sat down and watched it on a 25-hour basis?
No. No.
Yes, every year David invites us down for it.
We just sit there.
Obviously, there would have been many ways you could have ended it, and you certainly didn't need to end it with the death of Victor. How did you come to the decision that the right thing to do was literally to kill the character off?
I think it was women partly just to draw a line under it so that I couldn't be asked if I would write any more episodes, because even though people still do say, when's it coming back? But he's dead. And also because I thought it was different. I couldn't remember another principal character in a situation comedy ever having died at the end of it. And it was the Sun's front page. This is a measure of how far we got. I don't bereave it. That was the big headline, when
Genius.
Absolutely. But having released to the public the information that he died, what then do you keep up your sleeve? Was the question. And there was a further twist in that.
So, Richard, you were at peace with this decision, and you felt I've been angry long enough. I want to do other things in life. So, by all means, then run me over under a railway bridge.
Yes.
Yeah. But, I mean, going back to it now, I might have asked for a bit more.
So after he's been killed...
Margaret, following Victor's death, has been befriended by this lady who has lost her own husband. And the scene right at the very end, we see Margaret round at Glynis's house. Glynis played by Hannah Gordon. And Margaret goes out into the kitchen to get her some paracetamol and stumbles upon a scrapbook full of cuttings all about Victor's demise in the road accident. And she deduces from that actually Glynis may have been the hit-and-run driver. The question is always asked, did she lace her orange juice with paracetamol, and did she kill her? Because she had vowed earlier in the show that if she ever found out who did this, she would kill them. Annette is of the firm belief that she did kill her. And people ask me, and I say, I don't know. It's meant to be a question mark, but that's what's interesting, isn't it? That it's a question mark. And of course, after that scene, that rather grueling scene, we couldn't finish on that. We went out on a visual montage under the Travelling Wilburys song. But I remember Paul Jackson was there and said, "Well, because that got huge laughs all the way through. You'll be leaving these laughs on." I said, "No, we're taking them all."
Travelling Wilburys song, David. There's an episode called "The Man in the Long Black Coat."
Oh yes.
And when high on cocaine, Victor starts singing "Mr. Tambourine Man."
Yeah, and
there's a common thread there, isn't there?
And we finished that episode with Mr. Tambourine Man, which you don't always get through unscathed with BBC continuity announcers coming in and talking. And later tonight, you think, no, we made a special request that they actually let that go, because we have these kind of Star Wars credits.
And well done for getting clearance from Dylan, because that can be tricky.
I'm not sure that we did.
Listen, it's been an enormous pleasure chatting to David Renwick and Richard Wilson about One Foot in the Grave. It's as funny today as it was in the 1990s when you made it. And of course, at its heart, one of the great performances of Richard.
Absolutely, yeah.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope we've successfully answered the question, what's funny about One Foot in the Grave?
What's Funny About was an expectation production for BBC Radio 4. The producer was Owen Braben.
Hello and welcome to What's Funny About on Radio 4, hosted by me, Peter Fincham.
And me, John Plowman. This is a show all about television comedy. We talk to the writers, producers and performers behind some of Britain's biggest TV comedy hits. And we hear the inside story of how they brought their shows to the screen.
This week we're talking about a series that's particularly close to my heart, Green Wing. And we're thrilled to be joined by creator, deviser, part writer, part director Victoria Pyle and Tamsin Gregg, who plays the central role of Caroline Todd. Green Wing was a genre-busting tour de force, a sitcom, a sketch show and a soap all rolled into one. In the spirit of full disclosure, I was the executive producer of the show, but although my name is on the credits, the credit for its brilliance lies entirely elsewhere.
It was set in a hospital, but the likeness to any medical drama ends there. For example, at no point in Holby City does someone open an office door to find a camel at their desk. And Holby is, of course, all the poorer for it.
Green Wing was, at turns, tender, weird and playfully, pleasingly surreal. There's been nothing quite like it on British television before, which is why it gives us such pleasure to be able to ask Tamsin, Victoria, what's funny about Green Wing?
Well, that was a lovely, lovely introduction.
It was. I'm literally going to say Tamsin Greig is
And
what's
I'm
funny
going to
about
say
it.
Victoria Pyle, because she's got more roles in the creation of it than I have. I just turned up and said the lines, and mostly didn't say the lines, because I would go, I'm not saying that.
Seriously, though, it is, I'm sure, in my mind, it is because of those incredible performers. It is that miraculous facility they all had to be able to jump between those genres you were talking about. They just sort of segued seamlessly between puerile comic banter and real emotional drama, I'd like to call it. I think we can call it drama. And also do, juggle a donut or do pirouettes in the foyer.
How did it come about, and why was it such a sort of, I suppose, unusual mix of elements?
Because it was born out of the intent to experiment after we had finished Smack the Pony, it was a sketch show, and we were all, Caroline Leddy included, the commissioning editor at Channel 4, motivated to try and do something with a little bit more narrative structure. And Green Wing started out very much as an experiment to see if we could marry those two genres. And the sort of holy grail was to try and achieve something which had a narrative interest, could hold narrative interest, and have characters who we fell in love with and wanted to pursue through their whole journeys, and still had the freedom to nip off left and right to do a sort of funny observational joke.
So why is it set in a hospital?
Well, because you want an arena which has got the whole world inside it.
But didn't you say you were thinking about, all those different arenas?
We did. We thought spaceships, hotels, college campuses, ocean
Cruise
liners.
ship, yeah.
Yes, we did.
Tamsin, I'd love to ask you how this came to you. Did you get a call from your agent saying, hey, Tamsin, do you want to get involved in this thing? I'm not sure if it's fish or fowl or whether it flies or whether... Do you know what I mean? It's not a typical thing for an actor to suddenly... And is there even a script, or are you going to have to make it up as you go along? All that sort of thing.
There wasn't a script. I was invited to go along and meet Victoria Pyle, knowing that she had done Smack the Pony. And before they'd even said Smack, I was saying yes.
So it had not been for Smack the Pony, you might have said, well, where's the script? I don't go and meet people without a script.
I was youngish, so I was probably up for doing everything. I think I'd probably go, no, I don't think so now, because, I like sort of walking in the park now instead of working. But because it was Victoria Pyle and I'd loved Smack the Pony so much, I thought, that'd be really interesting to go and meet her, which I did. And she wasn't able to help me understand any more than my agent said about what the thing was.
Did she say first up you were going to be wooed and fallen in love with by two charismatic, handsome actors?
No, because she didn't know that I was going to be in that part.
We knew we just loved you, and so we had all our characters drawn up.
All your characters fall in love with Caroline?
No, but we had all our characters plotted, and we had some material, but this was far more to decide what Tamsin would be up for, what would she be interested in as much as anything else.
But as I understand it was team written. You had more than you writing it.
Yes, oh my gosh, yes. It's quite a complicated process, but you start off with the characters, and we all devise the characters communally through people that come into our world, our own private world. So somebody's history teacher or somebody's stammering doctor. It's just how we started with the characters, and we started by everybody sharing people that they knew and plucking names out of their past or their present, either from their real lives or from a fictitious character. For instance, the Mark Heap character, Alan Statham, was very much inspired by the lieutenant in Good Morning Vietnam. Sue White came about because Richard Preddy, who had a school where there were two teachers called Sue White, and we initially were going to have two characters called Sue White in the same show. But when Michelle came along, we thought, well,
were they Scottish, the teachers in his school?
No, not at all.
So that was Michelle suddenly.
Absolutely, Michelle.
Because the Scottishness of her is a
critical, yeah. But she was enough. Just one of her was enough. Before we had those characters cast, we wrote some material around those characters, completely non-story orientated, just random material. Then we tried to find our lovely people, and some people we were inviting because we were in love with them anyway, like Tamsin and Mark Heap, who we knew from somewhere else.
And others you didn't like at all?
Others we didn't know at all.
I thought you were needing to say, we didn't like them, we thought, well, they're quite funny.
We fell in love with them the minute they walked through the door, most of them.
It's interesting, maybe, that you cast essentially actors.
Because the drive of all the casting, which was so critical, was that I can never define it. I always call it the thing. And the thing is that incredible ability that Tamsin has just got naturally, where you can make anything, whether it's a bit of puerile banter or a bit of Shakespeare, totally and utterly believable and not sound like a script. Yeah. And it sounds really odd now because the kind of tradition is to be much more realistic and naturalistic documentary-style performances in comedy. But it wasn't so much then, actually. It wasn't so much. But it was that authenticity of being able to deliver whatever with those skills that we were looking for.
One thing that won't come across on the radio, but is so important to Green Wing, is its very distinctive directing style. When characters leave a room, it might go into slow-mo. It might speed up and they rush down a corridor and then it slows down again.
I think there's two things there. One is the sort of directorial style, how it looks, how the characters interact and how we follow them around, basically, on a moving, fluid camera. The other bit is how we've edited it into that slow-mo, speedy style, which came about intentionally. I had seen a strange American advert and it did a strange thing of appearing to be slow and fast at the same time. And I was banging on about it to Billy Snedden, our editor, and he persevered and persevered until we got this strange sensation of being slow and then ramped up, which was very much part of the end result.
Were you aware of this, Tamsin? Or did you just act like you would act in, as it were, anything and then...
Or just very slowly. And then sometimes quite fast, because I realised that I've kept everybody waiting. But no, you did try to explain to us what you were trying to think of. I mean, obviously I didn't understand.
Probably I didn't either.
No. So both of us were a bit like,
I was making it up as I went along, I think.
And there were times when you were saying, well, we're just going to film you come down this corridor, and which was taking quite a long time, and I thought, this is going to be a really boring programme, because all it is people just walking down corridors. Then when we saw what you did with the pilot, and we were like, oh, suddenly it all makes sense. And then what you get as well is you get all of that going on, which I've never seen in any other show since then, is the way that the editing and the music all come together and they're all doing the same thing.
But they're all keeping you guessing. So 1 minute it's fast, then it's slow, then it's the right speed. 1 minute it's funny, then it's a little bit moving and sad, and it doesn't...
Sometimes it's really groovy, and then it's very melancholy.
It's choreographed.
And it perhaps hints at silent comedy.
Definitely hints at silent comedy and inspired by, but the music is so incredibly powerful. I think one of the best soundtracks for any TV show ever.
And you won a BAFTA for it.
For the original score, Jonathan Whitehead, a.k.a. Trellis, who did all the music, did indeed win an award for the original score. And very sadly, he's no longer with us, and he was just a genius that is irreplaceable.
One of the hallmarks of the series is work culture, behaviour at work. It is absolutely rife with a sort of sexism that wouldn't exist in the modern world. You know, we can maybe just play the scene where Mac and Guy discuss the 5 qualities they look for in a woman.
What would you say the 5 most important qualities for a woman?
Yeah, tough question for someone who's only just getting familiar with the here and now.
What's a tough question?
5 top qualities in a woman.
I was asking Mac, actually.
Oh, 5 qualities, that's easy. Number 1, bendy.
Unpredictable.
Number 2, shaved.
Must appreciate the genius of the kinks.
Number 3, slightly anorexic.
Thoughtful eyes.
4, about sort of 5% lesbian.
Should be in touch with her masculine side.
And finally, mustn't be too smelly in the cellar.
Compassionate.
Ugh.
So what you come up with is an unpredictable yet compassionate, slightly masculine Kinks fan with eyes.
I know. It's an impossible dream.
Would you write that now?
Well, no. I mean, but I'm still proud of that scene because it's the touch paper that lights the whole triangle. You know, it's there they are and perfect.
But also, it is perfectly rooted in the character.
That's what I'm saying.
You could write it for that character because those people exist. And the conversation may have changed now, and our perspective on how we should treat one another is obviously wider. But those characters still do exist in our lives, and that's where the comedy is, though. Surely, where you get those the extremes banging up against each other.
We were trying to be braver with things that had not gone just before, as every generation is. And there had been an awful lot of righteous, good, PC stuff. And I think we were just kind of reclaiming our freedom to be able to make jokes. I think the relentless misogyny of Guy throughout is permissible because it's clearly a character that we call out all the time. I hope that it comes over that we're not approving of these characters. We're presenting them because they existed, and that's the difference now. You can't present them even though they do exist.
But what you might get now, if you were writing that scene now, is that you would get Caroline as the only female character having a very clever thing to say at the end of the scene. And actually what Caroline not having anything to say at there says so much about where she is at and her inability to connect with either of them, but also it allows the audience to go, what?
Yes.
But interestingly, although, as you say, we see, if you like, untrammeled misogyny throughout the series, there is a scene where the tables are turned on your character, on Caroline Todd, by Mac. And I would argue here we're hearing the beginnings, if you like, of a modern language that we're completely familiar with today, but on the whole isn't there in Green Wing.
I don't go around saying, Guy, you look like the donkey from Shrek, or Ginger Freak to Mac, or Martin, you look like a vole, do I? Or you, Boyce, you look like a porcelain ladyboy sometimes, do I? Do I?
No, you don't. Because that would be offensive and that would be personal abuse as stated in the discrimination policy of this hospital.
What?
You heard. You just made discriminatory remarks about each one of us.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. You just said that he looked like the donkey from Shrek. That is making fun of physical deformity. You said Boyce looked like a ladyboy. That is homophobic. You said I was a ginger freak. That is... well, that's colourblind for a start. It's also racist.
You said I look like a vole.
Yeah.
It's a scene about gender politics conducted in a language that's very familiar to us today, but it stands out within Green Wing.
But it also does, I think, project the fact that she is being badly done by. She's the only... it reflects badly on them, which I think therefore serves its purpose.
But we're not living in a world of misogynist, badly behaved men who are basically schoolboys who've never grown up. And on the other side, women who are intelligent, mature, and all good, if you like. It's much more nuanced than that. And the women are capable of some very bizarre behaviour indeed.
Well, again, that was inspired by Smack the Pony, and I think we had discovered during Smack the Pony that we had an STP woman, which is where Tamsin's character came from, was called STP Girl, which was that whole mission of Smack the Pony to show females, to show women being not either perfect or foul in a two-dimensional way, but had to have multifaceted, showing absolute professionalism and smart, sassy, but also being vulnerable and flawed in some ways, and as equally childish at times and frightened as the bloke. So that was a real important part of having a female character that had several sides to her.
I remember reading one review, I think not at the time, but afterwards, because I don't read it at the time, saying that the thing about Green Wing is that it's so funny and every now and then it's surprisingly straight. And there was one bit where Mac says to Caroline and makes a joke about the size of her eyebrows, because at the time I did have really significant eyebrows. And Caroline comes back, you can be very cruel sometimes. And there's no joke, there's no let-up, and we're not allowed to do anything to get us to hook out of the scene. And you just let it be. And you suddenly realise that there are two people who are trying to find their way to each other and can't, and it's very clever.
It's very moving. I mean, I think the joy of the whole thing for me is about we've got genuine, proper, dramatic, emotional stories, and which is why people got invested in it.
And presumably the comedy helps you get through
some of the grimness that must be involved in working
I think
in
so,
the
but
NHS.
as I say, they all went off and trailed hospitals, and there's definitely elements of behind the scenes in the real world where patients don't generally see. There were some astonishing memories of the filming and recovery. We were allowed to do the most terrible things when we had like 15 minutes. This was part of the inconvenience and part of the joy of working in a real hospital. 15 minutes before this patient's going to wake up. And we were literally, they had a curtain around them and we'd get a little tap saying that they're waking up, so we'd have to pack up and shoot
So
out.
also you were responsible for financially supporting the NHS through
Completely,
that decade
yes, entirely,
as well.
probably.
So
yes,
that's
I think
also
we did
good.
buy a few scanners.
Well, that went well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that went well.
Now, we haven't asked the question, and I feel we ought to, why is it called Green Wing?
We had called it Doors because of the whizzing around doing dropping in on various vignettes and scenes, and we're struggling with it. And then Peter had been into the office, and miraculously on the desk was this little green figure with wings.
Victoria Powers brought this in. This is a tiny plastic figure that you might get in a cracker or in a Happy Meal, are we allowed to say that? And he's a sort of superhero with a green mask and he's wearing green wings. And I've never seen anything like it before or since.
And it was apparently on my desk.
No, on my desk,
I beg your
after
pardon?
you'd been into our room.
I put it on your desk.
No, you
It just
denied
turned up.
it.
It
You
fell
denied
onto
it.
the desk.
You denied it very vehemently for quite a while.
Well,
I think
I'd
none of
have
us
been proud
knew
of it.
where it came from. The only connection we had was you had been in the office. I thought it was probably Arthur's little toy or something.
Well, I didn't usually nick his toys and bring them to the office of a morning, but...
You had your own toys, didn't you?
Well, it remains a mystery then.
And what's really wonderful for me is that a lot of people come up to me and say, I love you in West Wing.
Oh, they do say that. They do say that a lot.
And I
don't
just
they?
say thank you.
Word is that you were known to corpse a little bit.
You can see in the show, there are times where I turn my back on the camera.
You can
because
see it
I've-
constantly, not just you, but everybody, and it was incredibly difficult. But the masks, the surgical masks, were very handy.
Oh, that was brilliant. So when we did the surgery scenes and he was doing a lot of stuff and we're just, I've got a mask on, so I'm just smiling.
Luckily, Tamsin wasn't there because she would have laughed her head off in typical style. But there was the scene that we tried to get on very early on in the first part of the shoot where Alan Statham is playing with his pointy stick at Boyce. He was scripted as poking it, but he actually put it into his mouth and rattled around his teeth. And I have never seen so many people corpse that we never got a take when...
Except Ollie Quist, who is amazing.
No, he does.
He does a little bit. It's just his nostrils flare,
Yeah,
don't they?
yeah.
But
that was the best
it's
we could
really,
get.
really impressive. But I think that's why you didn't put me in any scenes with Mark Heap, because you knew that it would be a total waste of time.
Would have been enjoyable.
Mark Heap and Pippa Haywood, it has to be said, do some of the most bizarre things in the
They
entire
play their
series.
characters at a rather extreme level.
Well, they're fully committed.
Finding Radio 3 on the tweaky nipples
Yes.
buttons is a
And
favourite.
Jeannie,
Yeah.
she sings when he gets just the right...
Radio 3.
And does he not at
Radio
one
3.
point hump a cupboard with a hole in it and
Yes.
she's inside the cupboard? And nobody else notices at all. Nobody else notices. They just get on with their
And then
daily
you get
lives.
those beautiful, beautiful visual moments, which are the ones that people remember, when Joanna Clark, Pippa Haywood, has blondified her hair, she's peroxided her hair, and then she goes into her office and cut to, and all the girls outside have got yellow Post-it notes and put them all over their hair and
Yes.
don't carry on with their work, and she comes out and looks at them, and everybody remembers that visual.
You went on to work with Stephen on Episodes, the sitcom. You'd obviously kind of been through Green Wing together, got to know each other's working style. Were you able to take that to Episodes, or was it just completely different?
It was much more conventional. However, what you get on screen in Episodes is two people who utterly trust each other. So instead of two actors turning up and trying to portray a marriage and people going, I really believe that you're married, and you're not quite getting it. Well, people did really believe that Steve and I were, because we had done so much work together.
And been
No, your
married.
characters
And
hadn't
been actually married.
Your characters hadn't got married in Green Wing.
Did we get
It's a
engaged?
bit enigmatic, yeah.
It was
Yes,
enigmatic.
you got
It was-
There's a
engaged,
scene.
yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
scene in which he very sincerely proposes marriage and keeps saying, "This is me," and Caroline doesn't quite believe.
The one on the station is a brilliant example of what I was saying at the beginning, which is that brilliant ability of these guys to slip between really comic banter and very, very emotional, heartfelt
very
drama.
touching, that
Because
scene.
it interweaves a sort of slightly tawdry tale of your lesbian dorm experiences with the very serious thing of him trying to lure you into marriage.
And there was
it
loads
worked.
of steam.
Oh,
And
more
it was on
steam than you'd-
Marylebone train station,
yeah.
which is really
It's like
romantic
Bonfire
anyway.
Night plus War Zone, does it all into one?
Yes.
What?
Yes. Yes to what you asked me earlier.
Really? You had a little snog and some touching with another girl when you were at school?
No, yes to the getting married thing.
Oh. Well, it's hardly prepubescent lesbian fumbling, is it?
No, sorry.
That's okay. Are you sure?
Yeah. I mean, I shared a bed with Marianne Selby when we were 15, and she rolled over and, no, I rolled over and touched her boob, but she was in a pair of pyjamas, so I don't think it really counts.
No, I meant about the marriage thing.
Well then, yes, I'm sure.
To me, it encapsulates what you guys did so brilliantly, of slip between those two things, because you felt like crying at the sad bits, but you laughed in between, and it didn't feel at all disjointed.
Your character has the end of the show. She
Wow.
floats off carrying how many balloons?
Well, there were a lot of balloons.
Quite a lot of balloons.
So she
How did you
floats away.
do
She's
that?
holding these balloons at her wedding.
Yeah.
And they're helium-filled, and the stage director just said, Caroline floats away. So I was actually... Because it wasn't really the time for CGI, because it was quite expensive, so they just
Yeah.
got in a 100-foot crane.
On the
And you're
windiest-
lifted up on a crane?
On the
I
windiest day
was-
in the world.
Yeah. I was attached to a crane and lifted up over this stately home.
Yes. Am I right thinking that there was an alternative ending where you floated away with Mac and Guy?
Well,
the
yeah,
three of you all
they
attached
run
together.
out to try and stop me floating
And
away.
they grab a leg
those
each.
men
Yeah.
hang on, and then we all floated with the three of us, which is a beautiful picture of
Yes.
the love triangle, of what they'd all been trying to
Who would have let
free
go
themselves
Steve was
first?
hanging on to your leg hairs, I think.
My leg hairs, yeah.
Isn't he?
You would have married the one who didn't let go.
Who all did
No,
let
you
go.
were already married.
Those are beautiful bookends.
Yes, they are.
Because the first shot of the whole series is her sitting at the bottom of a ladder.
God, you know, I
And
never
by
thought
the
of
end,
that.
she's
But the
climbing.
neatness
By
of
the
that.
end, she's
Yes.
floating away because she's
Yes.
found love.
But at that point, did you think you were filming the ending? Or could it have not been an ending had there been a third series? Why wasn't there a third series?
No, I honestly, genuinely think we knew that we'd come to the end of the road. I think we'd done what we wanted to do with these guys, and we'd sort of written them off, but mainly because they were all beginning to have such fantastic, well, they already had beginning fantastic careers, but everybody was was moving off into different directions, and it really was a logistical nightmare just getting everybody in the same place at the same time with that bigger cast. Something that was asked of us in lockdown was to potentially write a podcast version, and there was a huge long debate about what that might be, and I think they wanted to sort of spin off or something like that, and I had resisted for ages and thought, no, you know, we have such joyous memories of what it was, and there's nowhere we can go again. But they sort of chipped away, and we've now done potentially revived the group. We think we're going to record a podcast, which is essentially a continuation of where we were. So obviously that poses quite a lot of challenges.
Is
narrative
Caroline now
challenges.
happily married to... Has Mac died? Is Caroline... You don't want to answer these questions, clearly.
These are the questions.
These are the questions that you will have to hold
These
in
are
your
questions
heart.
But to go-
simply of availability.
Go back to your... but to that very point, more often than not, the reason you're alluding to is the reason why something doesn't go on. You can't get the cast together. I commissioned Downton Abbey when I was at ITV. Huge success. Ran for 6 series, came to an end. And I remember talking to Julian Fellows, who created it and wrote it. It was sort of my job as the head of the channel to try and keep hits on air, to say, it seems a shame, there's more stories to tell. And he said, I couldn't agree more. I can't keep the cast together. The cast all want to go out into what he called equity land and see what else there is out there. And once you've reached that point, it's very, very hard.
I think we had reached that point, but I also, there are various reasons. I think because Timesden had the feedback that they couldn't justify the expense that then a third series...
Channel 4.
This is one.
Yeah, because that would be another reason, wouldn't it?
And the figures,
Channel 4, yeah.
If you think back, we were getting about 2 million, which was perceived as not enough of a hit.
To me, that always begs the question, what is a hit? Even then, there was a difference between the sort of absoluteness of a figure like 2 million and the reach and penetration of a show that became part of the kind of comedy television culture of the time. A different thing, I think.
I think, though, that if you're thinking to yourself at the time of making something, yeah, this is going to be a great big hit, you're probably wrong.
Yes.
I think you're absolutely right. Yes. Yeah.
Did you think that of The Archers?
You know what? You've got me there. I just thought this is never going to run.
But am I right, Tam, in thinking that you still, to this day, get a huge amount of love and fan worship from Green Wing, not just from all your other brilliant things you've done since?
So much. But I remember when it went out, and I was at the RSC in Stratford and was walking home through the graveyard of the church, of Shakespeare's Church, which was along the river, and this group of teenagers who were hanging out in the graveyard came up to me and surrounded me, and one of them started shouting in my face, "Do you know what I like about you?" And I said, "No." She goes, "Fuck all!" Pardon me, Radio 4. And I said, "Thank you," and walked off, and didn't realise that it actually wasn't a kind of assault. They were quoting Michelle Gomez in Green Wing, and what they were saying was, "We love that show." So it was a kind of disturbed way of saying, we remember those words.
Well, look, it's been an enormous pleasure talking to Victoria Pyle and Tamsin Greig about Green Wing, and to, in many different ways, answer the question, what is funny about Green Wing?
What's Funny About was an expectation production for BBC Radio 4. The producer was Owen Braben.
Hello and welcome to What's Funny About on Radio 4, hosted by me, Peter Fincham.
And me, John Plowman. This is a show all about television comedy. We talk to the writers, producers and performers behind some of Britain's biggest TV comedy hits, and we hear the inside story of how they brought their shows to the screen.
This week I'm delighted to say that we're joined by Lisa McGee and Saoirse Monica Jackson, writer and star respectively of Channel 4's BAFTA-winning sitcom Derry Girls.
On the face of it, Derry Girls tells the story of 5 typical teenagers growing up in the 1990s. But their childhood is played out against the backdrop of bomb scares and orange order marches. They're just an annoyance that's getting in the way of far more important stuff that the gang of girls and one boy want to do.
The show, as it turns funny and moving, hopeful and sad, combines the irreverent and the feel-good with joyful abandon. And viewers in their millions agreed it's Channel 4's most successful sitcom since Father Ted, and has been showered with critical acclaim, with a fan base that stretches from Martin Scorsese to the writers of The Simpsons. Which is why it gives us such huge pleasure to ask Lisa, Saoirse, what's funny about Derry Girls?
What's funny about Derry Girls? Yeah, I think I had this group of sort of chaotic teenagers in my head, and I was thinking about them trying to get boyfriends or trying to get a better grade at school and living in Northern Ireland in the 90s, and the line that came to me was, "Yeah, sure, there's the troubles, but these are the real troubles." And the minute I kind of had that line, it just kind of streamlined. I knew what the show was about.
And did you pitch it to Channel 4 as a sitcom against the background of the troubles, which is an unlikely pitch? And did they kind of immediately say, yeah, but that's different, that's original, we've seen sitcoms in every precinct and in every kind of situation, but nobody's ever done this?
Not at all, actually. I'd had another sitcom with Channel 4 prior to that didn't do so well. But some people on Channel 4 liked that sitcom and liked my writing and felt kind of bad that it was cancelled after one series. So they said, go away and write anything else, basically. I think it was like a pity commission.
And is it your story?
through a lens, do you know? I always say, like, if a different writer had have written my story, it could have been a tragic kind of coming of age thing. I think it's how you look at the world. I was always a very, very silly person, and I was surrounded by ridiculous people, I felt, and it's obviously like exaggerated and pulled this way or that way for comic effect, but yeah, I would say yes, in spirit it is.
When did it come to you, Saoirse? Did it come as a pilot script, and were you aware of Lisa's writing and kind of knew what to expect, or did it come as a complete surprise?
I knew of Lisa's writing. I'd watched London Irish and I absolutely loved it, and Jump and a few other of Lisa's shows. But when it first came through, I actually thought they were making a documentary about people in Derry. And I was like, I don't really know what I would have to say, but like, I'll do it. And then I opened it up and thought, and realised then that it was like this amazing sitcom, and I couldn't believe it. Like, that sort of feeling as an actor when you start to read a part as well that you just connect with so well. It's like, do you know that feeling before you're sick and like your face starts to burn up and you get loads of slabbers in your mouth? It's sort of that sensation. So it was amazing.
Did you feel, Saoirse, that kind of a pressure on you? You're playing, in a sense, Lisa's story. Did that make it different from playing the typical part when you knew there's a semi-autobiographical element to it?
I think that was sort of the case for all the characters, and I think really for me it was more of a privilege because I had this shorthand, this direct route to the voice of Erin. I've sort of appreciated it more and more now that the show's over and I go on to do different jobs, to not have the person that I'm there playing, to go ask questions to, and I realise how lucky I am.
I remember Saoirse saying, I think Erin's really physical, everything's through your body, and I remember going, oh God, that hadn't really occurred to me, but when I saw her do it, it became a bit inspired by me, but Erin's her own beast now because Saoirse brought so much physicality and clowning to it, and I feel of Erin as quite as a friend now, nearly, not me, like someone I kind of know, because I think we kind of built her together really. So it was really, I learned a lot from Saoirse as well that I've taken on board for new stuff I'm writing. You know, it's really a privilege to work with an actor so closely like that, I think.
Erin's a person whose facial expressions are extraordinarily varied and complex. Is that you, or is that you, Lisa, or is that a collaboration between the two?
That's Saoirse. It's incredible. It's a real gift because obviously, like, before I knew Saoirse, you're having to sometimes punctuate a scene with a word or a line, and then once I start working with her, you're just like, Saoirse can do a face. That's going to be fine, you know, and it'll get a laugh. No, that's all Saoirse.
What's so exceptional is how many characters with different character traits you create, Lisa, that shows so many different sides to the teenage experience.
The thing as well is, like, it has to have a comic function. For me, apart from all the sort of gorgeous stuff that Saoirse's doing with Erin emotionally, for me, the fact that Erin will just change depending on who she wants to impress is hugely useful for a punchline, do you know? In the same way that Claire would kill her granny for a better grade. She can be as moral and she can do as many fasts for Africa as she wants, but she's actually really cutthroat when it comes to it. And I think if you give every character one, I think Erin's is actually that she's a bit pompous is her funniest thing, that she thinks she's a bit above it all. But if you give every character one really strong thing, even if it's as broad as that, I think it just really works when you've a load of them together, pulling each other in different directions.
Was it a problem to find them all?
The gang?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really difficult. They're the only ones who could have played the one thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, we were so lucky to find the 5 perfect people. It just would not have been anywhere near as good without them. And I was talking about this recently, actually. It was always our nervousness, me and the director. It was always, have we found this ensemble? Because I think if you don't get the ensemble right, you're sunk, really. And I knew they were all brilliant individually, but there's just this one scene where they've stolen a notice board from a chip shop And then for some reason, they're walking down the street and like rock stars, you know, they just think they're amazing.
What you might call the hero walk.
Exactly, yeah. And they do it a few times. We kept doing it then because it was funny, but that first time, and it was very early on in the filming process, like, they just looked like such dicks. I remember me and the director just going, we have them, that's them, we've done it. Because there's no dialogue, there's no fancy shot. It was literally 5 young people walking in a way that made them look so stupid. We were all in tears laughing, and then we just felt so reassured.
It has a gang of 5 at the heart, but it's a big ensemble as well, with extended family, aunts and cousins and everybody else turning up.
The thing about the main 5 is they were young, so they might have been like actors that people wouldn't have seen before. The rest of the extended world of the show, it was slightly easier in that I knew a lot of those actors. I knew they'd just never been given the chance to be funny. Nobody goes to Northern Ireland for funny, do you know what I mean? But I knew they could be. So I knew Ian McElhinney could be funny. He'd be a brilliant grumpy granddad. And I knew Kathy Keira Clark could do Aunt Sarah. So I guess I was lucky in that sense that there's all these people I was excited about just seeing in a different light.
Was it a drawn-out casting process for you, or was it, one phone call, would you do this?
No, I think, like, as Lisa said, it was so important to get that ensemble perfect. I mean, it felt like I was waiting a lifetime. It just felt like the most drawn-out process ever. And you always think after you leave an audition that you really, really want it, you've completely messed it up. And in our final audition, I was so nervous because I wanted it so much that Mike Lennox, our director, had to, like, take me out and take me into a tea room and be like, calm down.
There was a series on the BBC earlier this year, I think, called Once Upon a Time in Northern Ireland that I thought was a brilliant documentary series which told you harrowing stories about the troubles from both sides of the community. But I honestly think I learnt as much or more about living in Northern Ireland from watching Derry Girls as I did from that series. Was that in your minds when you were making it, that the rest of the United Kingdom, who don't know very much about what it's actually like to live in a place like Derry, we're telling them that, as well as telling them a wonderful story about a gang of teenagers and all the ups and downs of their love lives and everything else?
But all that was not intentional at all. It was just part of the lives of these people. But I think, comedy is an incredible, incredible thing. People will dip their toe in comedy about a subject matter they might have no interest in or might be scared of in a way they just won't about any other form.
Because it makes you realise that, of course, for most people, every day wasn't dealing with bombs, wasn't dealing with soldiers. The bombs were an inconvenience. How will we get to school if I can't cross the bridge?
Totally. And what I learned was when I was developing the show that I also didn't know that the idea of it being an inconvenience was that funny. Like, I remember telling Liz Lewin, the producer, about how annoying it was if your car was chosen to be searched by the British Army. And I was like, because you know how annoying that is. And she was like, no, I don't know, Lisa. Nobody knows. Like, that's insane. But once that clicks, as a comedy writer, you go, oh my God, I have all this stuff that's actually just really funny.
There's a great episode, one of my favourite episodes, where using Father Peter, again, one of my favourite characters, you play this scene of the difference between Catholics and Protestants, and they can't see any similarities at all between themselves.
Now, back to similarities. Yes.
Protestants are richer.
Okay, so that's another difference. And I'm not sure that's actually... is that true?
I would say so.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair enough.
Yes, great. Off you go.
Catholics really buzz off statues and we don't so much.
I do enjoy a good statue, it has to be said.
So again, what we have there is a difference.
Oh, Protestants like to march and Catholics like to walk.
Okay, can we just... Jenny, could you just... Oh, you've already written it down, have you? Great, thank you, Jenny. I just want to pause and think about what's in here. What about the fact that we all feel and love and hope and Write this down. We all cry. We all laugh. We all dream. So I just want to think along those lines for a moment. Okay.
Catholics watch RTE.
Protestants love clean air.
Protestants are taller.
Catholics have more freckles.
Protestants hate ABBA.
Okay, thank you. Let me just rephrase slightly. Can you think of anything that unites every single person in this room? Is there anything that we all want?
For this to be over.
And we'll wrap it up there.
Now, the person who says, I want this to be over, is Sister Michael, who we haven't mentioned, who is the headmistress of the school, but she seems to be put there by the Catholic Church.
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny one because for a generation of women, joining the convent was a career move. Do you know, it was get married or do this other thing where you can have an education and a career. And I think Sister Michael, and she says in one of the episodes that, you know, there was free accommodation basically if you thought, you know, it was quite a good move.
You start getting celebrity fans, and then you get very famous people saying, I'd love to be in your show. To me, sometimes that's a danger moment.
I agree.
But you co-opt a very famous Hollywood star in Liam Neeson and turn him entirely into you win that battle. He becomes part of Derry Girls. How did it come about? Because he can't have been in the plan on day one, Lisa.
No way, we wouldn't have ever dreamed of that, I think, at the start of the show. But I think you're so right about the celebrity thing, and it got to the point that there was, I was delighted about this, but there was a very long list of people that wanted to be in this show, particularly Irish people or Irish Americans. The rule for me was they had to mean something in the Derry Girls universe. Otherwise, I don't know, it just felt like a stretch, or it felt like we were turning the show into something else. But Liam Neeson absolutely fitted that. You know, I think we had learned he was a fan, and then we'd heard if he was offered a part, he would do it. So we made sure there was a part that was...
So you created the part for him and thought...
Yeah, I mean, I still kind of thought we won't get him because of his schedule, and it was really, really tricky, and there were a lot of people working very hard to make that work.
This actually still shocks me, and I still be a wee bit raging about it, but Lisa and Mike only told us that Liam was going to be in it, honestly, about 3 days before he was, because they were like, we didn't want it to get out, and we were like, but we're in the show.
I'd love us to hear the scene where he's playing the police chief interviewing the girls when they've got arrested and they go into full, these are our human rights kind of mode.
What were you doing on the grounds, girls?
We went there too. We thought that we could. We were just trying to. Reagan. We would like to speak to a solicitor, please.
All in good time.
For the tape, the inspector is refusing us the right of legal representation.
There is no tape.
Why can't we speak to a solicitor?
I didn't say you couldn't.
Oh, you're trying to stitch us up, aren't you?
Why would I do that?
Because we're Fenians.
That is a very serious allegation, girls.
Are you denying that your organisation is prejudiced, Inspector? For the tape, the inspector is refusing to answer.
There is no tape.
If your organisation isn't prejudiced, Inspector, then you won't mind telling us how many Catholic officers are serving in it at this time.
I think we're losing sight of who's questioning who here, girls.
How many?
Well, if you count the Jewish fella from Ballymena, 3.
In the entire police force, you have 3 Catholic officers, and one of those officers is a Jew.
Lovely fella, by the way.
Wonderful.
Saoirse, we see Erin stand up to none other than Liam Neeson as the police chief. But one thing that really confounds her is the idea that her own mother might be having an affair with a plumber. and this is kind of a whole new challenge for Erin. And of course it's a misunderstanding, but it touches a really raw emotional nerve, doesn't it?
Like, it's honestly, once again, just a testament to how beautiful Lisa's writing is, because the gear changes again with Erin that you can have, that she's like this growing up girl, but still she's so scared. You know, the idea that her family that protects her so tightly in any way, that there's a fine crack in that, just can completely rock her world. And there's such an innocence to it, and also a hilarity that this wee gang can hype each other up so much. Do you believe anything?
Look, when Gabriel was fixing the boiler, I brought him up a couple of cups of tea.
A couple of dozen?
We got chatting. Jesus Christ! He told me that he was taking these night classes in English literature. He wants to do a degree. He convinced me to come along and check it out. That house was the tutor's house, Erin. There was 8 other people there.
So why were you drinking wine, Mummy?
Because everybody was drinking wine. There was cheese as well.
Blue stuff. Stinking.
So stinking.
I don't understand why you wouldn't just tell me. Why the hell should you have to tell you?
Dad, please.
The fellow's a control freak, Mary. It's any wonder you had an affair.
I didn't have an affair. I didn't want to say anything because, well, the idea that someone like me could go back to school, the idea that someone like me might even go to university, well, it didn't seem possible. I thought there's no point in telling anybody about all this because it's not actually going to happen. It's not real.
Well, let's make it real, if it's what you want.
Do you mean that?
There's nothing you can't do, love. Nothing.
Absolute arsehole.
I love that scene. It's such a gorgeous speech.
It's a gorgeous scene for Tommy Tiernan.
Yes,
who, having been mild-mannered and bullied by his father-in-law for 3 whole series, or however long it's been, finally we see him lose it, and then we see him being so incredibly generous to Erin's mum. He still gets put down by Grandad again.
Lisa, I think I saw you say somewhere that it is based on your granddad. Is that right?
A lot of the characters are a few people stuck together or, influenced from other shows or whatever. But I can't take much credit for Granda Joe. It was just completely my grandfather. And people ask if I've had to push him, and it's like I probably toned that character down. he was quite the man, and he really... just a very, very ordinary working class man, but he just...
huge feminist.
He'd 4 daughters. Yeah, he just didn't like men.
At the end of the scene, there's a moment when Lisa thinks this is taking away my thunder. Erin thinks this is taking away my chance to be the first in the family to go to university, which is a wonderful selfishness.
Yeah, and Lisa did think that in real life. That actually happened. My mum.
There's one English character, although he's part of the family, but he's been brought up and he has an English accent, James. And, I mean, is it fair they bully him mercilessly at times? Is that true to life? If it was the occasional English person in Derry, would they have had a really hard time of it?
I would say, they wouldn't have understood maybe what was happening. And it's like, it's love.
Yeah.
When people are take an English person and like that to the point that they could just say whatever they want to their face and roar at them and swear at them. I'm married to an English man. At the start, I think there's a bit of, why is everyone so rude? But then the more time you spend in the environment, you're like, oh, this is how these people show they love me or show they're worried about me and so I think James comes to realise that he's actually cared about.
But we, the audience, have great sympathy for him. I mean, being the only boy in a girls' school.
I think he's so lucky.
Obviously, Erin, like many teenage girls, is thinking about boys, and the most unlikely, which leads, I think, to a wonderful scene, is when James, who in a sense isn't a boy, he's one of the girls, they don't treat him as a real boy, tries to say to Erin, I like you.
Was he always going to do that?
It was going to be more of a will they, won't they? And then when we put the gang together, they were just so good at being friends. And I felt like, God, I haven't actually seen this where a boy's desperate to be accepted into a girl gang, and he's trying to be one of the girls. And I thought, I'm going to try and preserve that for as long as possible and play it towards the end then.
Something changed
when I was standing at the end of that tunnel, something shifted.
What tunnel?
You know, yesterday, the tunnel, the light, the voice, the brush with death.
Oh, aye, sorry, go on.
What terrified me most was all the things I hadn't done.
Like a hot air balloon.
What?
I remember you always banging on about how much you wanted to go on a hot air balloon, but I always thought that was
Yeah,
really...
I looked into it, but it was so expensive.
Really? How much?
Could I just finish my point?
Fine.
What terrified me most was all the things I hadn't done. And all the things I hadn't said because I'd been too scared or too nervous. And...
Are you all right?
I like me, Erin.
Sorry?
You. Shit. You. I like you, Erin. I think I've liked you for a long time. And I don't expect you to say anything. I just want you to know that I think you're beautiful.
After we finished filming that scene, and Erin tells James that she doesn't think it's a good idea. You know, when you've been working with each other for such a long time, you've like such a shorthand. Lisa came up to me and Dylan and was like, "Sorry guys, can we just lighten this up? You're not getting divorced." It's like we just went full dramatics. Like we just really
So, obvious question.
Do they stay together?
Yeah, if James waits long enough,
Will he
does
get
Erin come his way?
I think so, yeah. I always felt they'd get together at about 30, yeah.
Why did you finish it at the end of series 3? Was it because they were all about to go off in different directions?
Yeah, there was a number of things. It honestly, from the very beginning, when I didn't know we were going to get a second series, even it felt like a 3-series show to me. And I don't know if that's because a lot of my favourite sitcoms had done that or what it was. I think, but mainly because they were so young, and I felt once they were over 18, it became a different thing. I'm also the only writer on it, so it's difficult to keep that engine going. And without it getting...
Isn't that crazy?
I didn't want the standard to drop, do you know what I mean? And I knew it would, probably, as they all are. Like, also, they were getting so successful, the actors, and they were going on to do all these amazing things, and it just all felt like it was the right time, yeah.
Did you ever think about making a film of the series?
Yeah, we thought about it for a long time, and I'd even had an idea for it. But then I think when I've written that final episode, I was kind of so content with where we left them. I just sort of felt if the idea comes in 10 years' time, you know, I'd take a view then. But it felt like really everything was telling me it was the right time.
If it's any help, Peter suggested a musical.
I would love that.
It would make a great musical. It's got all
I'm
the
down
elements.
for that. And Jamie Lee can do the splits. We're halfway there, guys.
Yeah.
Presumably, Saoirse, from your point of view as an actor, there comes a time when you think, I don't want to play a schoolgirl, or I don't want to play, you know, there is a natural ending as well.
I think that it was just, with Dairy Gears, it was the setting and the world of like being in the school. But I, you know, without sounding too sentimental, like I feel like we've all grown up with these characters, and I have such a great attachment to Erin, and I honestly miss her, that I would go back and play her in a heartbeat, and would love to visit her at any time in any circumstance, because that's what's most fascinating is how, to me, it's how like all these characters and Erin approaches the world, and I would love to see what she's like outside of Derry and outside all these people that sort of look after her and put up with her.
Well, that's a clear message to you, Lisa.
It's been such a thrill to have Lisa McGee as Saoirse Monica Jackson with us today for the wonderful series Derry Girls.
Thank you so much, guys. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
What's Funny About was an expectation production for BBC Radio 4. The producer was Owen Braben.
Hello and welcome to What's Funny About on Radio 4, hosted by me, Peter Fincham.
And me, John Plowman. This is a show about television comedy. We talk to the writers, producers and performers behind some of Britain's biggest TV comedy hits, and we hear the inside story of how they brought their shows to the screen.
This week, I'm delighted to say that we're joined by Griff Rhys-Jones to talk about a series that had a huge impact on both our lives and on the audiences who enjoyed it, the sketch show that Griff made with our much-missed colleague and friend, Mel Smith.
Smith and Jones bestrode the world of sketch comedy for more than a decade, and they managed all this despite having to put up with me as their producer. Their iconic head-to-head sketches became an instantly recognisable Smith and Jones signature. In them, Griff and Mel resembled a modern-day Laurel and Hardy, but with the twist that it wasn't clear who was the more stupid.
I should declare an interest here. I first met Griff in the mid-1970s, and he and I worked together for the best part of 20 years at our production company, Talkback, where we made, amongst many other things, Smith and Jones. All of which and much more is why it gives us such pleasure to be able to ask Griff, what's funny about Smith and Jones?
Good morning. I don't know. Well, I'm saying good morning. Of course, this could be in the middle of the night, for all I know, but it probably is. But what's funny about Smith and Jones? Well, no, that sort of depends on who you are. There comes a point in every performer's life where you sort of, you know, as you pass into the distant sort of, you know, future, as I have, what went just doesn't seem funny at all. When Mel died, we dragged out with other people sort of some sketches and we put them into a memorial show and we started to play some of the stuff, and I'm sort of going, wow, actually, funny enough, this wasn't as bad as the executive producer and the producer used to say. I'd like to make this claim, actually. A few years back, Matt Lucas rang me up and he said, Griff, in quite a state of excitement, he said, did you know that I think it was Jon Stewart, have said, he was asked on his podcast, what was the best sketch ever written? And he said, the Nazi general sketch. And for a while, we trended all across America, while people went and tried to find out, first of all, what the Nazi general sketch was, and then who had written that. The Nazis have been a theme of Smith and Jones through 33 hours of sketch material. They tended to turn up. This is the last Nazi sketch we did, which was based on me and Peter Johnfield, who appeared in the show, but he was in a play with me, and we used to get back to our digs very, very late at night, and we watched Night of the Generals. And I pointed out to Peter that what was funny was the number of different cliched Nazi generals there were.
Enter!
Gentlemen, General Matter, forgive my late arrival, but as you can see, I have a rather obvious...
No, the limp is me, I'm afraid.
But of course, I am a little bit gay. And I dip my lips with...
I think you will find that it's me, my friend.
In which case, I must immediately find up the telephone and say...
Get me the Fuhrer!
And at least I still enjoy the company of beautiful women and listening to the gramophone classical music. With your eyes shut?
I'm afraid so.
You give me no choice. I am the Nazi general who is outwardly calm but subject to sudden and inexplicable fits of temper!
Let's go back to the beginning, Griff. So you and Mel, you're a great double act and one of the television's great double acts, but you didn't start out as a double act. You didn't meet at a very young age. Am I right in thinking you met on Not the 9 O'Clock News?
Well, now, Mel and I'd seen Mel in Edinburgh because he was he was the sort of, how can I put it, he was the Griff Rhys-Jones of Oxford. Somebody had said he had a fantastic reputation as a brilliant director in those days, and somebody pointed him out sitting in a bar in Edinburgh. And I thought, wow, what, that Cabbage Patch Doll? And I didn't really meet him until Not the 9 O'Clock News. He'd been a director on The Fringe and a working actor. I'd been a producer at BBC Radio and done a sketch show with somebody called Peter Fincham. So the two of us sat in absolute astonishment as the world went nuts for a visitor from the planet Blob called Rowan Atkinson, who sort of was just... We found ourselves so often sitting on what was like the substitute bench. But then we were sent off to do the radio commercials for the Not the 9 O'Clock News merch, as it was in those days, and we sold in such huge numbers that I bought my first house, I think, as a result of it. And that was sort of like... and we sat, Mel and I, and started... I wrote them, and Mel helped me do them. And we went into business next as a radio commercials producer before we sort of made a sketch show. But suddenly we were in harness, and off we went.
Were the head-to-heads one of those radio commercials, or did they come later?
Well, people cruelly said, oh, they pitched that from Pete and Dud, but that wasn't actually the reason. This is what happened. I remember particularly, we used to make them in a place called The Barge up in Little Venice, and we'd arrive there and sit on either side of a table with a big fat microphone between the two of us. And we sat with this, if you can imagine, talking eyeball to eyeball with this microphone. And so when we came to do a television show, I said, well, we should do exactly the same. Let's just sit there facing each other and remove the microphone. And ironically, that became the unrepeatable best idea that the whole series ever had. 33 hours of television.
I read a comment on YouTube only the other day that confidently said there is no way they could have done this sitting looking at each other, because they would have corpsed throughout, because they're so funny they wouldn't have been able to keep a straight face. Well, that wasn't the case, was it? You were sitting opposite each other exactly as the camera shows.
No, we kept keeping a straight face because we were frightened to death that if we made a mistake, that would completely bugger up that take.
You've got to go back and do it all again.
No, but we couldn't do it again because the audience had heard all the jokes.
Wouldn't laugh as
it was
much,
an
yes.
unrepeatable format in one... I mean, they'd heard them sometime in their childhood, but then they'd heard them in that recording. And although it might have been a good idea to sort of sit down and go back and re-record it in that night, what we sometimes did was if we'd buggered up a particular version of it, we'd say, OK, we'll have to do that next week. And we'd swap round and do another one.
Let's listen to a head-to-head, and this is a very famous one. And of course, the dynamic in the head-to-head is the Mel character and the Griff character, they're both a bit dim-witted. Well, they are both dim-witted, but Mel thinks he's less dim-witted than Griff, and kind of he will explain things to Griff, who he regards as his intellectual inferior. And I think this is a perfect example of it. And this is a head-to-head about Mel's visits to the sperm bank.
So when you go down there, right, down this sperm thing, yeah, what happens then?
Well, I mean, there's no fuss about it, you know. I mean, it's like donating blood. Yeah. I mean, one little prick and it's over. You know? I mean, you really don't notice it at all.
No, well, you wouldn't, would you? No. Well, so do they give you a hand? What? Well, do they give you any help? You know, when you go down there?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, a nurse does, yeah.
How does a nurse help you then?
Well, I mean, she gives you the bottle.
Oh, what, like a milk bottle?
Sort of, yeah.
That's nearly a pint.
Yeah, but I mean, you're not expected to fill it.
Oh, no. What, wait, just half full or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I mean, yeah. I mean, you obviously, you work at your own pace, you know.
Tell us a bit about the different roles that you and Mel have, because on screen you're comedy partners together, and the magic of Smith and Joan lies in Mel and Griff's great performances, great characterizations. But behind the scenes, your roles were different.
Have you ever seen the film of Laurel and Hardy that Steve Coogan made?
Yes.
So in that, I watched that, and I literally had tears running down my face. I know that sounds crazy because I'm not a very emotional person like that, because it was so similar to me and Mel. There were so many things in it which reminded me of some of the way that double acts have to exist. I was Stan Laurel, and Mel was Oliver Hardy in many respects. I mean, it wasn't that he wasn't a very hard-working producer himself, but I gradually took on the role of being this sort of, script editor, although we had script editors and organising the thing, organising tours, and Mel would come along in the most affable way and help out, but he didn't want any of the responsibilities that generally go with keeping a double act together. I mean, I remember once we decided to go on a tour, mammoth tour, around the country. And these are playing 2,500-seater auditoria. And I said, Mel, OK, well, we've put a week's rehearsal in. And Mel said, oh, listen, mate, I don't. Righto. We'll be all right with a couple of afternoons, I think.
So you played quite different roles, but there's so many things that unite you as performers, and it seems to me that often it's the creation of characters working with whatever the underlying comic idea of the sketch is that's what really draws them to you. I'm thinking of a particular sketch, a wonderful sketch with a rather odd name, Predictable Lighthouse Keepers. And there is a funny underlying idea to the sketch, which is extremely well developed, as these lighthouse keepers who've shared a lighthouse for a long time sort of essentially start to get on each other's nerves.
Did you get the light switched on there, Fraser?
Aye, all passing ships will be safe in these waters tonight.
Aye, well, sit you down and I'll bring you your tea.
Thank you, Dougal. Milk and 2 sugars, if you please.
Aye, I know.
Sorry, I was just saying,
Aye, well, I've worked with you in this lighthouse for, 12 years now. I think I can remember how you take your tea.
Hey, oh, sorry, Dougal. Hey, by God. I'm looking forward to this, mind.
Do you have to do that?
Do what?
Do you have to bang your spoon like that?
I hadn't noticed.
And then you always throw it in the sink, don't you?
Oh, what's the problem, Dougal? Do you not like me throwing the spoon?
Why can you not put it in the supper? Or leave it on the table? Or stick it up your hooter for a change?
That's, I assume, shot in front of an audience. It's a live performance in front of an audience. Would that have been a sketch that you would have had to, rehearse at length, knowing that you've really got one chance to get that fresh reaction from the audience?
Yeah, but Mel had an amazing memory, astonishing memory. So when we rehearsed, he didn't like to rehearse very much, as John may remember. He liked to sort of, we spent a lot of time talking about what we were going to say, but we didn't spend a lot of time on our feet and give the poor cameraman, the director, a chance to work out how he was going to shoot it. We'd do it for that benefit, but Mel never wanted to do much more than that. And then Mel would still be standing with the script in his hand during the actual final run-through on camera. And when we'd done the final run-through on camera, he'd go upstairs, he'd get himself a huge plate of food, sit himself in his dressing room and learn the entire show in 20 minutes. It had taken me the best part of a week of reasonable, careful study to try and get all those lines into my head. And Mel would turn up, word perfect, after having not really bothered with it or any process of learning until the very last minute.
As we said earlier, there were many series of Smith & Jones, and it also began life on BBC Two under the title Alas Smith & Jones, and then eventually moved to BBC One. Do you remember it evolving and changing over the years, or was the change from BBC Two to BBC One largely that you dropped the Alas from the title because that had become a bit arcane, I guess, by then, and, basically made the same show for a BBC One audience?
They wanted us to go to ITV.
What, to take Smith & Jones to ITV?
Yeah. And I remember sitting in an office with Greg Dyke up in that sort of terrible ITV place. And he said, he made the offer and we would have been there Saturday night entertainment. And I walked out and I had to say to Mel, I see myself as a BBC person. If I made a lead in almost anything in our lives, he would always go along with me. So we turned down the opportunity in a funny sort of way to move the whole shebang to ITV. So the way we look at it is we needed to go to BBC One. So we wanted to make it a little bit more what I would call BBC One-ish, light entertainment-ish. And we struggled quite hard to think of ways of doing that. There were sketches, there was a couple of sketches we used to introduce, which was Mel and me more sort of Morecambe and Wise, because there was Mel and me as the head-to-head characters, there's Mel and me playing characters, and there was also Mel and me, which was Mel and Griff. And Mel was there, sort of the easygoing Mel, and Griff was the uptight pain in the arse. So we were constantly, this is the funny thing, we were constantly trying to reinvent. The biggest moves towards new formats were not noticed, as it were, possibly by the audience, but they weren't noticed by the audience because it was still Griff and Mel. So we did change things when we went to BBC One, but it was still us, and so people weren't really aware of the lot of thought that had gone into trying to make it more BBC One-ish.
But the big thing I remember, Griff, is you emphasising the importance of quickies to make the show sort of bounce along.
Oh, indeed, of course. And what I also, I meet people who say, I loved that sketch, and I don't know what they're talking about. And I realise they're talking about what we called a quickie.
Yeah.
A one-joke thing, which we didn't consider to be. We always try to keep these sort of rules of the variety show going. And one of the reasons, I suppose, we went on for so long with such a following audience, do you know what I mean? We always try to have sort of short sketches, medium-length ideas. I was watching, I never go on the internet to try and track down the thing. But I did, for some reason, find myself looking at a sketch that I wrote, which was just called Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, where it's simply two newscasters, and I read the news, and Mel sang Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. That's all it was. And it's hilarious. It's like I quite like that when I die, to be played on the thing, because that all the laughs come from me as a straight newsreader trying to adapt to the fact that my co-anchor is simply singing Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. That's all it was.
The arms talks are to reconvene. President Reagan announced today that the American government has made concrete assurances to the Soviets and offered to meet all current viable demands.
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me.
Home news.
I think one thing that you had a love of was language and of people talking gobbledygook at times. There's a sketch I'd love to listen to, which I think is called Cockney at its Best. This seems to be pure essence of Mel and Griff. You're a trainer in a boxing ring with Robin Driscoll as your boxer. I'm not sure if Robin was actually fit to be a boxer.
Robin wrote this sketch.
Yeah, Mel turns up and he's the promoter with a kind of camel skin coat, on his shoulders. Let's just have a listen to that.
Frankie! Stuff to Frankie. What is with everything, with all the stuff, on a grapevine, what's that then? What, you got it all wrong and everything and all that and everything like that, all that old toss and everything like that goes with it and all that and everything. Yeah. It's submitted up, Charlie. I mean, with a bastard ton up front like that and everything else that goes with it, and all that stuff and that and all that and that and that and that. It's just mouth, that's all, it's just mouth and everything like that, and like that, and everything like that, which goes with it, and everything like that, and everything.
Oh, yeah.
But just like, it's just mouth, like when like what all of everything, like what with all the stuff, and that's all with mouth. Is that right?
Right!
Bollocks.
When you watch a sketch like that, Griff, do you look back and think, well, yes, you've performed with lots of other funny people and in lots of other comedies, but there's something about you and Mel there that is a bit of a once in a lifetime kind of relationship chemistry on screen?
Yes. It's like one of the things with television is you look at it and you think, if we'd done that on stage and you'd done it night after night, you'd have refined it more and found more in it, because it's still a brilliant idea. And the other thing is that I think if we'd been a later format sketch show in the 80s, we'd have probably had those characters coming back every week. What I realised in a funny sort of way, looking back, is we were profligate with sketch ideas. We invented a format which didn't try, wasn't very successful at running the same characters over and over again in a Harry Enfield way or a fast show way, and I used to envy those shows because once you got Ted and the gamekeeper going, you were there and you could write more into it.
We've on this show, we've done a number of sketch shows like The Fast Show and Not the 9 o'clock News. Mostly they do 3 or 4 series, maybe 4 or 5 seems to be tops. But Smith and Jones went on being incredibly successful. People loved it. Did you feel there was a moment when you thought, well, maybe we will start repeating ourselves, maybe we should move on to something else?
If you mean, did we ever feel, hello, is that the bottom of the barrel I'm looking at there? There was always a moment, because I guess Mel and I would have liked to do other things together on television. But every time we got to the end of a series, to our astonishment, they did turn around and say, OK, let's have another series. And in truth, as you know, we were running a successful production company. And for a successful production company, the nature of continuing with a series is sort of an important thing, especially one with really quite a high budget, I think, by television standards. So I'm not saying that was the reason we did it. I also intrinsically believed that there's a British tendency to kill off things very quickly. And, people to change their mind and say, let's try something new or whatever. Whereas actually, I know that formats, be they just a minute or take Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Live was starting up about the same time as Not the 9 o'clock News. It's still running. Mm. So I was content to, what we should have, if we were an American series, by now we'd have syndication rights and we'd be all over the place and being shown.
But between when Smith and Jones came to an end and when Mel very sadly died in 2013, that's a period of 10 or 15 years. Do you feel that there was more in Mel and Griff that could have been in a different form in sitcoms or in whatever, that only very sadly came to an end when he died? I
think it was a relief not to do a sketch show again. I started doing sketch shows when I was 18 and I finished after 30 years, and that's a long time to be trying to perfect or come up with or write sketches in a funny sort of way. Both Mel and I wanted to go on and do a different sort of thing together. But this is another thing to consider. From about 1981, Mel and I did everything else as well. As well as doing the sketch show, I spent every night in the 80s, virtually, on stage. People tend to forget that, but I did, I don't know how many hit shows in the West End, so one after the other. And Mel was directing things and being around, and we were involved, even in Mel's case, a little bit more peripherally than I was, but I was quite peripheral. But we had a company, and we spent, especially in the early days, we spent a lot of time, going around and meeting people and getting that organised and things like that. Until Peter, you very successfully took that over and made a better fist of it. But the truth is that we did. The 80s, we were all over the place and doing so many things, all over things. It was quite a relief to step off and not have to be judged, as you always are, as comedians. You don't, as a comedian, ever escape the sort of tittle-tattle. So that was quite good. But in the last 10 years, I've been back on stage doing comic stuff. I can imagine Mel, up there looking down on me, or possibly down there looking up at me, and going, "You bastard." Because he did want to do more shows and things together, especially towards the latter end, and we should have done.
Well, look, it's been fantastic talking to you, Griff, about Smith & Jones. Nostalgic for us because we were both involved at different times.
No, pleasure.
It would have been even more fantastic to talk to you and Mel together, but I hope the spirit of Mel comes through with this. Let's just have a listen to that one more time. You and Mel doing your head-to-head characters, which is so definitive and so beautifully performed in this clip.
Have you ever heard of this business, of the faking of the organisms?
Faking orgasm.
That's right. Have you heard of that?
I have heard of it. It's never actually happened to me, but no, but I have heard it.
Well, how'd you do it?
Well, you don't do it.
Oh, right.
You don't do it. The woman does it.
Oh, I see.
Right. Well, what sort of thing? What is it then? Well, basically, because when you're making love, and she wants to sort of, she fakes the orgasm, you see, to make you feel as though you're giving her satisfaction.
Oh, I see. How does she do that then?
Well, like. Oh. Jesus!
Well, that's all right then.
How do you mean?
Well, 15 years of marriage, I never heard anything like that.
What's Funny About was an expectation production for BBC Radio 4. The producer was Owen Braben.